Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Dark Art Society podcast. My name's Chet. I'm your host. Happy New Year. Hope everyone's having a great new year. Seems like, I don't know, from my perspective, it seemed like everybody was having a rough holiday season around Christmas. And there was definitely some kind of weird energy going on, at least between me and my friends that I talked to, and I was feeling it myself. But it seemed to clear around New Year's, and I feel strangely upbeat and positive about 2022. And part of the reason for that is this amazing interview I did with this week's guest, Steven Zapata. Wow, amazing! It's such a great interview. I can't wait to share it with you. It's it started off with a lot of shit talking about working as a commercial artist and, and stuff, aside from his history and all that. But it really went into some deep places on the second half. So stick with it. It's great. The whole thing's great, though. It's excellent. Tons of great information and really interesting interview. Steven's a really great artist, and I was happy to talk to him and have his episode be the first episode of the year and have it be an amazing one. I think this is one of the best episodes yet. So that was really a great way to start the new year, especially for the Dark Art Society. So that's coming up. Let's see. Had Christmas. That was great. Took a break. That was half kind of lame and half great. I was really, I don't know, it always takes me a while to wind down after I'm doing a lot of work. And so once I was able to wind down, I started giving myself time to play and started getting back into ZBrush, relearning ZBrush, and some 3D programs I used to use. And that got a little bit frustrating because I've forgotten so much. It's on one hand, I remembered more than I expected, but on the other hand, I was like, shit, this stuff is really hard. I forgot how hard it is to do 3D. But so then that kind of started bumming me out. I was getting really frustrated. And I'm like, this is my vacation. I'm supposed to be having fun. So I just painted. I started doing some paintings and kind of got back in the groove. And so it kind of wound up on a high note, although it was a weird energy. I felt a weird energy towards the end of December, but I'm feeling a great energy now, like I said. So I'm excited about that. Excited about the new year. And so yeah, let's get on with this interview because it's so damn good. If you want to support, you can go to patreon.com/darkartsociety. That's what makes this podcast happen, is your support. And we've got 2 new subscribers this week. Steven Zapata. That was cool of him. Thank you, Steven. Very awesome of you. Really appreciate it. And we also have Albert Fisk. Thanks, Albert. Yeah. So if you want to join, support the cause, help to spread the good news of dark art, you can come to patreon.com/darkartsociety, get in the private Facebook group that's amazing, full of amazing people and amazing artists. And you won't be disappointed. So I guess that's it. Let's just get on with the interview. It's so good. All right. So that's it. Enjoy the interview, and here we go. There it goes. That strange voice I can't get used to. What's up, nice. Steven? How you doing?
I'm good. I am very good. How are you, Chet?
I'm good. I'm great.
It's a new year. You're feeling good in the new year?
I'm feeling good in the new year. I'm feeling good to have you as the first interview of the new year of 2022. I thought that was pretty cool.
It's an honor. I'll say that.
Thanks. Honor's all mine. Your stuff is amazing. Your stuff's great. Yeah, I've been trying to get into YouTube more, trying to just get more of a foothold in that space, because I've had this
Mhm.
YouTube account for like 15 years and never used it really.
Yeah.
And so I've been on there more, and lately, I don't know how long it's been. It's been a while now. I'm just trying to get into it. But I
Mhm.
kept seeing your videos come up, and it's like, oh, I know his work. And then I dropped in that one day you were doing that live stream. I watched you on some other ones too. I just didn't say anything. But then the one where I asked you to be on the show. So yeah, so I was just kind of like, oh, a new artist friend. Why not have a new
Yeah.
artist friend on the first uh, uh, new show of 2022? And
Well, thank you for that.
that piece you're working on was great. So awesome.
Oh, thanks, man. It was
Yeah.
pretty, typical, extreme combat,
It's
heaven and
so
hell,
cool.
demons battle.
It
That's
was
the good stuff right there.
yeah, and that was great. I just saw on your Instagram too the color version, because I don't think you were. I didn't see the color part of it. I just saw where you kind of were blocking it out, and it was really and actually informative, really interesting to see how you work. And yeah, it was awesome.
That's funny because, like we said on that stream, I had your Gnomon DVD from
Oh,
years ago on my bookshelf for like a comically long time back when I was at Art Center. So it's weird that the Ouroboros is happening, where it's like I learned from you and now you're watching me, and you're like, oh,
right, totally.
like that's weird because probably you informed that somewhere in there at the
That's
base.
so cool. That's amazing.
And it's
Oh,
it's funny. It's funny because like when I try to remember, like I was consuming so much instructional content back in
mhm.
those days. It's like I can't remember the content of the DVD at all. Like
Right.
I know I picked up techniques and Photoshop stuff and things like that, but what I remember vividly, well, one, I know I watched it, right? I watched them all over and over again.
Right.
And I also remember where it sat on my bookshelf right next to a Ryan Church DVD. I remember that
Wow.
super vividly on my white bookshelf. That was like just a little one. It was like half height right behind my door in my bedroom back in college. It's so funny.
Well, I'm in
Life's crazy.
good company there. And
Mm-hmm.
and I got this that you recommended.
Oh, word. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
I got
Good,
it.
good and cheap. Like it.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it, because the last time I bought a Wacom tablet, it's like Wacom was kind of the only game in town. I'm talking like 10 or
Yeah.
15 years ago or so. I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, and I got my last one,
Yeah.
and that was all you could get, and they were all expensive. And so when you told me that you're using this cheap one, I was like, shit, it's like $116. I'm just gonna get it, and it works
Yeah.
great. It works great
Dude.
for Photoshop. ZBrush, I'm having some trouble with.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Dang.
I don't know what it is, but I'm just like relearning ZBrush recently. I haven't used it in years, and so but Photoshop, it's like working like a dream. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I don't think I've used ZBrush since I got that one. So who knows?
Okay.
Maybe if I took it into ZBrush, maybe it would have the same issues. But I'm glad it works for Photoshop.
Yeah,
And
that's what I bought it for mainly anyway. It's great
yeah,
though. So nice. I love it. So thanks for that recommendation.
no problem.
So anyway, let's hear about your life story.
Oh man.
How did it all begin? How did it all begin? Were you an art kid? What's the deal?
Yeah, I was an art kid. Yeah, I just have to own that kind of outright. I don't really remember a time where I wasn't making art and drawing. The story that I usually tell here when people ask is that when I was very little, this might even be pre-memory for me. It might just be that I think I remember it, but I just know my sister's story.
Right.
She drew a cat for me where she did like the circle and then the triangles, and she was explaining to me like circle here, triangles for the ears. And the way she tells it, I made her draw it over and over and over again. I was like, show me again.
Oh,
show
cool.
me again.
Wow.
And it was like the magic spell had been cast at that point, and it like completely took over my brain. And I was like, how's that possible? How could it be that you can do shapes in this order and the audience will view it as something? I'm sure I was even using those words in my young mind, something like that. And I just never got over it. That's what I say. I just never really got over that.
Well, that's interesting too, because you seem like, very big on education, and but going to art center for one thing is kind of a big deal. And you talk about all these DVDs, and you were learning a lot through Gnomon DVDs and this and that. So it seems like that's seems like what that was with your sister.
Yeah.
You heard showing you over and over is basically watching a Gnomon DVD over and over.
That I'd never thought about that either. Actually, that's an interesting insight coming from you. I hadn't thought about it that way. Yeah, it was also, damn, yeah, the first moment of art was also an educational moment. That would make sense why that has stuck with me. Thank you for that. That's useful.
It just struck me. It's so cool. It's so cool.
Go figure. I'd never thought of that. All right, so yeah, that's where it kicked off. So I drew always beyond that. When I was young, I drew. I think for my generation, I have a lot of. I think our early influences are pretty in common. You know, I was drawing a lot of anime that I was watching. Dragon Ball Z was big for me, which I think opened my mind to like anatomy. I was like, their muscly arms look good. How do I do those muscly arms? So that got me interested in anatomy, I think, pretty early. I also drew stuff from video games and stuff like that. I was very influenced by video games. That's definitely where it started off early on. You know, my mom still has some of those ancient sketchbooks that have characters from video games and things like that. And then that grew. I don't remember when I got exposed sort of to the old masters, I guess, like the really like traditional Renaissance art really got in there kind of early. I think.
Really? As a kid, huh?
I think so, yeah, because my mom, you know, my background is my parents are from Colombia, and that's a very Catholic country. So a lot of iconography around in my household when I was young. And yeah, you're going to cross paths with the Sistine Chapel at some point in that iconography. So yeah, I was definitely seeing some classic high Renaissance art in that sort of religious context. And it influenced me. I think it did get in there. I started looking at that seriously for like pointers and influence a bit later. But yeah, I'd say I think around 14-ish, I started taking improving seriously. And I didn't have a distinct goal for that in mind. It was just like, I think at some point I realized like, oh, if you draw more, you get better. So let's try, we love this. Let's try to do this more. So I have memories from my freshman year of high school of like in class putting my textbook up, and I had like anatomy plates open in front of me instead. And I was like copying skeletons and things like that.
That's great.
So that was pretty early on with some of that stuff. And awesome. then the next step was I went to see the third Star Wars prequel. That's the next step. I went to see the third Star Wars prequel. So I forget what year that was, but I think I was 16, maybe something like that. And I saw it. So this was Revenge of the Sith, and sat through the credits, or just the very beginning of the credits. It was like made by George Lucas, concept designer Ryan Church. And I was like, I stood up in the theater, you know, my best friend Omar was right next to me. I remember it so vividly. I was like, what the hell is that? What artist has his name right after the director? Right. And like many people up until that point, I'm sure you've experienced this because you were in production and you did it, VFX and stuff like that. Like until you tune into that stuff, you don't even ask yourself who designs these things. Right. Like, how do you make these things? Like unless someone like shows you a behind the scenes DVD or something like that, it doesn't even occur to you. So and that's sort of how everybody sort of ingests media and things like that. So that was the first moment that kind of cracked it open for me. So I remembered his name. I went home, I Googled it. I saw who his buds were. I saw where they all went to school. I discovered that this was a thing, you know. I'm from New York. So I hadn't crossed paths with like the LA production stuff up until that point in my life. When I talked to people about art, they were like, well, you're going to be a gallery painter or a performance artist or something like that, or you're going to draw comic books. And it's like, those were the three avenues, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. So that was the first time that my eyes got open to that. And then I went all in. You know, I went all in from there. I was like, well, those guys went to Art Center. I'm in the market for a college, so I'm just going to try to go there. That was the only school I applied to out of high school.
Wow.
I wanted nothing else. I was like, once I saw that there was something that was kind of what I thought at the time was exactly what I wanted to do, I was like, that's it. There's no compromise.
Yeah, that's the place to go for that, pretty much.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I don't know how it is now, but it seems like at the time that was kind of the place to be.
For sure. And I mean, I've taught there recently, so I do have some opinions on like what is it now and things like that. And the markets change, the world changes. It's like stuff is always fluctuating and moving. So yeah, I guess we could come back to that later if we want. But I applied there. I got into illustration there. I'm trying to remember correctly. I got into illustration there when I applied. And then I found out that they had just opened an entertainment design program.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, well, now illustration's wrong. So I didn't go. I was like, I can't go in for illustration. So I tried to get in for entertainment design. But the deadline was extremely soon. And I made an illustration portropolio. I knew that wasn't going to work for entertainment design. So I tried to throw together real quick, like, look, thumbnails, right? Like, look, here's what design looks like.
Right.
And because I had never really done that before, it was horrible. And I got rejected. I didn't get in. So I went and met with them. They were like, here's why you got rejected, but you can do illustration. Do you want to go into illustration, then maybe try to transfer? And I've always been an extreme guy. So I was like, nope, see you in a year. So,
wow.
So I didn't do illustration. But I moved anyway. I told them my parents were like, you didn't get in. I was like, doesn't matter. I'm moving to LA. So I moved. I rebuilt my portfolio over the next year, applied again with way more work, way better work, and I got in. And then I went to school for 4 years in entertainment design.
Where were you living when you moved out?
First, I moved in with my sister in Santa Monica. I lived with her. She had already been living out there. She's quite a bit older than me. So I moved in with her in Santa Monica. I think I lived in Santa Monica with her for like 9 months. And then once it was once I had gotten into school and I knew I was going to go, then I moved to Pasadena, just right there at the bottom of the hill.
Cool. Yeah, I love Pasadena.
Nice place. I lived in Pasadena the whole time that I was in LA, which was about 9 years all told.
Oh, wow. Shit.
Yeah.
And we never saw each other.
Go
I'm like
figure.
right near Pasadena where I live. It's like,
oh man,
15 minutes from Pasadena.
Close miss, man. All right, next time I'm out there, we'll be sure to cross paths.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's do that.
For
so
sure.
So yeah, I went to school there for 4 years. I did not graduate because I got into a studio over there right at the tail end. I went into a company that did all sorts of stuff, but mostly theme parks called Thinkwell. That was where I went right after school. So I didn't
get that gig.
You know how it is, friends. Yeah, it's all about your friends.
So true, man.
Yeah, it's all about your friends. Yeah. Ahmed Al-Duri helped me get that job. He was already working there. He'd been doing some freelance stuff for them for a bit, and they got overworked on something. They needed a recommendation, and he put me on. Yeah, that's how it goes. Cool. That's why I always tell students, I'm like, you need to start making friends immediately.
Like, yeah. I say the same thing too to people, especially people trying to get into fine art. It's like go to the shows and network and meet the people that run the galleries and meet the buyers and meet people who go to the shows. It's like that's half the battle.
Absolutely. People want to think it isn't. Right. People want to hope it's all about meritocracy,
because and also who wants to go, especially artists who wants to go and like meet new people all the time. I know it was like, for me, it was really hard because I'm not naturally a person that just can go talk to someone. I can do it now, but at the time when I was starting, I was just like super shy and did not like just going up and starting a conversation with someone I didn't know. So artists are, so many artists are introverted. It's a hard truth to swallow. Yeah.
It's and everyone has their own sort of process with it, and you need to find some balance that's comfortable with you, but it is important. It's really important. I never had much. I've always been comfortable talking to people. I came at it from a different problem of I was just like very absorbed in the work. Like I don't I mean, I think like most artists, I experience some social anxiety, but I
Mhm.
actually, once I'm talking to someone and things like that, that's never bothered me. I like
Right.
talking, I have a lot of fun having conversations, but the idea of like, all right, do it regularly and make it a priority. I'm like many artists. I'm like, I gotta be in the studio,
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
not good
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
I gotta be getting better and
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
better stuff. And it's like,
Exactly.
that's
That's
a
the other
way,
thing.
it's so big. That feels so big,
Hmm.
it's way more energetically overwhelming than like, all right, go have a glass of free wine at this gallery opening and shoot the shit about whatever. What's the cursing status on this podcast, by the way? Sorry that
Oh,
I.
but anything.
All right,
There's no cursing thing.
gotcha. That's good news for a New Yorker. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just slips out.
No problem.
Yeah, so that's how I got that job. And then I worked, that was my first studio gig. And I did that in studio for 3 years about. So I did that after I was done with school. Then my girlfriend at the time, now wife, we were living together in LA. We were both native New Yorkers. We've known each other from back when I was in New York. She got a job out in New York. She was like, what the hell are we going to do? I was like, just take it. I'll figure it out. And let me pack up here. And I think I can do the freelance thing. So then so I ended my time at the studio, moved out to New York, started doing remote instead,
Mhm.
kept doing some work with that client, getting new clients. That my longest stint on one thing in that period was I did video game concept art. I worked on Elder Scrolls Online for a bit over a year, a pretty
Hmm.
extended contract
Wow.
for freelance. I did that all remote. That was, when was that? I think that was 2017 or 2018, I think, somewhere in that range.
So you must have been set for COVID.
Yeah, I was ready.
Because just doing all the work remotely, it's like everyone had to catch up to you.
Yeah, no, I was giving tips, dude, everyone that I knew was like, this is so, what do I do? And I was like, start the day with exercise, drink a lot of water, be creative first, then do your chores. Don't answer your emails. I was spitting it out left and right. Yeah, I had all sorts of input for everyone's existential crisis.
Yeah. I know. I was like, it really, aside from, how we got groceries, it was like nothing changed for me because I never go anywhere anyway. And I'm always in the studio working, that's it. It's been like that for years now. So it was like it weird to, it was weird to not feel that kind of stress that most people were feeling. Because it's like, I'm used to this kind of lifestyle. I'm the solitary dude. It's just kind of the way I am. So to see people freaking out about it, I was kind of like, wow, what a trip. It's a bummer.
It is a bummer. I mean, I saw a lot of people go through painful times getting through it. And I do still get it, because I wouldn't say I'm quite, even after all these years, I wouldn't say I'm quite comfortable all remote. Like,
oh, really? Yeah. You seem more, you seem, just from what talking to you and I don't know, your energy, you seem a lot more extroverted than someone like me, like your average artist,
Yeah, I think I've come to accept that about myself.
That's a good thing, man. That's a bonus. That's a bonus. It's like,
I think so.
Being introverted is like a real hindrance, you have something I had to kind of like get over in order to get this fine art thing going. It was really kind of a struggle, but you can do it. That's great though. I mean, I admire that. I admire people that are like that.
I feel lucky. About it. I tend to think of myself as an introvert who's like extrovert curious. I think I saw that on a t-shirt at some point, and I was like, that's it. That's some good t-shirt wisdom right there.
It's perfect.
but I still think I am a real introvert, because like I still get, like parties and stuff don't energize me. I still get my energy from being alone. That's where I get my energy. Like I said, I don't get stressed by talking to people and more extrovert things. But when like the friends that I have who are like true extroverts, it's like if they're alone, they're tired. Right. They're getting more and more tired. And it's like being
people. I know people that like have to be around people, or they like feel like they don't know what to do when they're alone. It's like they have to be around crowds of people. And I'm like, wow, totally
That's
the
different.
opposite of me.
Yep,
But
absolutely.
sounds
No,
like you got kind of like one foot in both, which is great, which is the
yeah,
best place to be, I think.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. It's a good balance.
And you get to be back home,
Mhm.
that's great. It's sounds like sounds great to me. I mean, I don't know. So how do you like it as working, doing freelance, like remotely? Do you still want to be in the studio, like in an environment with other people?
What I have realized is that I am a very hard person to please. That's what I've realized. I have a very like specific thing that I want, and I if I don't have it, I'm not happy. And I
Mhm.
don't know, it took a long time for me to sort of, because it feels bad to say that, right? Like I I I I want to be a different person a lot of the time. Like
Mhm.
the person that I want to be is like this stoic individual who's like any situation is fine and I can
Yeah.
control my emotions and things like that. It's like that's the inner image of what I'd like to be, but um thankfully with introspection and therapy is also useful. I realized that,
Absolutely.
yeah, I realized it's just like I'm not that guy, and I've had to, I've had to accept the truth that I'm hard to please. There's a very specific thing that I want, and the compromises and things like that, they just don't cut it for me, so
Yeah,
um
knowing yourself is it. It's not being something that's better than what you are. It's more like accepting who you are is what it's all about,
you
I
know
think.
it's a hard journey. It's a hard journey, but
Yeah.
it's so important. It's so important. Yeah. So I would say that what that looks like for me is like, yeah, I don't like being alone all the time. I actually do like having people around. Like I like the studio environment.
Mhm.
It is a lot of fun for me. And my God, like when you need a break, you need downtime. There's just people around to get energy from and to
Yeah.
chat with. It's good fun. But that is not enough to justify the work not being perfect. It's like if the work isn't the work you want to be doing, you'll turn that place into hell in no time.
Right. True.
Like
That's true. That's a good point. That's a
so,
good point.
and like, yeah, like I talk to people and they're like, well, you can't have it all. And it's like, tell me that on my deathbed. Like,
Yeah.
give me a chance to figure it out. Like we'll see about that.
Yeah.
We'll see about that.
Yeah. When I left the effects business, ultimately you say that and it's, got me thinking about it differently. I've had a lot of reflections on my time in effects because I was there for like 20 years. And
Mm,
towards the end there, when I really got sick of it, I felt like I wasn't doing work that I wanted to be doing. And so therefore the environment, and I was like at the, well, yeah, I was at Rick Baker's shop, which is like
mm.
the best shop ever. So
That's the
amazing.
one.
And
Yeah.
that's the one.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
like, it was just incredible. And even that, you start looking at the negative aspects of it and being cooped up and not being able
Mhm.
to come and go when you want and having to deal with personalities you might not like. And, there's obviously good and bad in that kind of environment. But yeah, I think that was the case for me. Not being satisfied personally with the work made me a little bit negative to the whole situation. And now that I about a year after I left, I got a better, more realistic view of what a great work situation that was and how much fun I actually had. I mean, had so much fun ultimately overall. And I did kind of miss it. Working on a cool project like Hellboy or something, like something where it's
Yeah.
like, or a Tool video where it's just
Yeah.
like with a crew is really, there's nothing like it. It's really amazing or when you're working with people that are really good artists, or at least people that know what good is. That
Hmm.
helps. Like, higher ups and stuff that have good taste in art and um want to make something really great, and everyone's motivated. I mean, there's nothing like working on a team like that. It's
Yeah.
super fun and energizing for sure.
Yeah. The work is, dang, it's important because it's like you got into it to do work that you liked, right? Like
Right.
no one, there's very few artists who get into it to be on a team, just to
Right.
be perfectly honest, The team is good support, and so many jobs they make or break on the nature of the team, the people that you're working with. But the work's the core. You gotta like the thing that you're doing, especially because art is freaking hard. It's super hard to do, and it's time consuming, and it requires a lot of focus in a way that, let's face it, most things really don't a lot of the time. And if it doesn't feel right, if you're not connected with it, it's nigh unto impossible to muster that focus and that
energy
into that.
I've said that many times. I totally agree. It's like, don't become an artist unless it's really, really what you are passionate about, because there's going to be so many times where you're going to want to quit and be frustrated because it's so hard to do. That you have to have that passion to carry you through the rough times, because there definitely will be rough times, difficult times where it's you just can't get this thing, or you can't get whatever, color mixing or whatever. It's like you'll get there, but you have to have that passion for it to carry you through. And it's because it's like, if you're doing it for money, there's way better ways to make money. Easier ways to make money for sure.
Dude, it takes like 15 years to get good at drawing. Like, go be a lawyer, like
totally. If it's just about the money. Yeah, exactly.
Seriously. I occasionally get the student who they really put big importance on the money, and I'm like, who lied to you? Like, what happened here? Like, the money can't be it. There's no way that can be it. Like, you gotta, there's ways you can get there, and you can make some money, if you work hard and you hustle and stuff like that, which I hate that word hustle, but there's no other way to describe it at a certain point. But it's a bad place to start. It's bad. It's bad ballast for the balloon in general, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And especially this is an issue too with, I think, people getting into becoming fine artists, because now it's like you could be a fine artist nowadays. You could sell yourself direct on Instagram and stuff. You really can do it. And but at first you have to eat shit. It's like you're not going to get a good hourly rate for your painting that you spent a week on. You're not going to get a week's pay. No way. No one's going to buy it until you kind of have a reputation. Your name's out there. That's assuming the work is really good too. It's like it takes time to get good work. So when I was in effects, I was in shows selling paintings that I sell now for like almost $4,000 for like $300, $250, $300. And it's like, they're not that much better now.
That sounds about right, man.
Because I was like, right. I knew at that point when I was a few years in, but I knew I had to sell cheap to get a record of sales and get a collector base. And it's like, I know this is, maybe 50 cents an hour, what I compared to, selling it for this much, but I'm looking at 10 years ahead. I'm looking at a point where I could sell that for like $4,000, so it takes, you can, and in fine art, it's even harder to make money, but you can do it. It just takes forever,
Yeah. It's a hard road to hoe. Yeah. I applaud you on everything that you've done there. I've tried a lot of stuff in art, but I have not gone down that road, which is,
it's a hard road.
I'm watching all of you guys do it, and I'm picking up tips, if I ever give it a shot. But that's a realm that, I've never quite dipped into it. I've tried a lot.
It's something you could do. I mean, all the stuff in your website, it all looks like fine art to me. It doesn't look like commercial art or anything or illustration. It's like, those are gallery worthy pieces, so it's like you could do it and just add it, almost like as a, I don't know, you have to have a lot of energy though. It's like a second job, and it's like,
I can tell. Yeah.
Look what it did to me. You should have seen me before I started. I look like you.
Oh no. You're killing me, dude.
But it's hard. I started this group show. We haven't done it because of COVID for the last 2 years, but it's called Conjoined. We did it for 10 years straight. It was like Copro Gallery's biggest group show. And the whole idea was to get all these artists I knew from makeup effects that were so amazingly talented that were never showing in a fine art context. And so it ended up being a mix of fine artists and makeup effects artists creating fine art. And it was super popular show.
Cool.
Every year. Amazing.
Yeah, it sounds familiar. I never
Yeah.
went to it, but I definitely feel like I've seen promotionals for
Yeah,
it and
yeah.
heard about it. Yeah.
It's like
been around for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. It's 12 years ago, I think, because and then we did for 10 years straight. But the thing is, it's so hard to get effects people, I found, to get into fine art, because the pay is so much better in fine art, in effects, and it's regular. And
Yeah.
I remember when I left the business, I was like, I'm going to be a trailblazer. I'm going to be one of these. I'm going to be an effects guy that leaves effects and becomes a fine artist. And then everyone's going to follow me over, because we used to do all day is bitch about what we were working on, working on the Nutty Professor and all these movies that were like, and not the Nutty Professor 2 or whatever, or some movie that ended up being kind of dumb. We're pouring our hearts into just bitching and wanting to be fine artists. And so I thought, yeah, everyone's going to do it, man. When I show that it can be done, everyone's going to do it. And like nobody did it. And then I realized it's because they're used to making like good money regularly, and it's like they don't want to, and you can't blame them. They don't want to put the time in and eat the shit for 5 years and get paid a quarter of what they would be making in effects. So it's like,
I mean, I see people sell drawings for these rates that I'm like, that's like, I'm going to part with a favorite drawing when it's like, I could just make that amount of money with like a couple hours of work,
totally.
like that's what I'm going to with that. Like, it's hard. It's a hard it's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But it's like, for me, it was, I guess it was the life raft. It was like, I couldn't take any more of the effect stuff, because I just felt like I kind of went as far as I could. Right. And I had this desire to express my own thing, and it was so rare that I was able to do that on a movie.
Yeah.
Like Hellboy, Guillermo let me do this character called the Chamberlain, or Hellboy 2. It was like in the movie for 3 seconds. It was
those
like
are good seconds.
It was like the king's right-hand man, and he's like, make it anything you want. And so I got to make one of my guys, something that I would paint. And it was like, wow, how long have I been in this business at this point? Like 15 years. And this almost never happens. And it ended up being really cool. And it was a great character, but it just never happens, except for like the Tool videos. I would get an opportunity. Adam would always be like, make this character look like this, but I don't have a design for this one. So you come up with something. But that was just, so it doesn't happen very often, but I had enough of a taste of it to where I'm like, I want to just do what I want to do. So I had to kind of go full bore to make it happen and make money at it in order to be able to leave. So you're young. You still got plenty of years before you get burnt out.
We'll see what happens. I'm always fighting the burnout, man. I feel like even young, even though I've made a lot of progress and done a lot of things, it's like, there's like a day a month still where I'm like, what was I thinking? Let's quit. Like this is all.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I have that too. I have that too. Even now with the fine art thing, every once in a while, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? This is ridiculous.
You're crazy. You could have done anything else. Why this? Yeah. It's so intense. The only thing that makes it better is that it's just, I've experienced that day so many times that I'm just like, all right, in two days, it'll be different. You'll wake up 2 days from now and you'll be like, I've solved art. I know what to do. So just ride it out. It's like, you just start to take it less and less seriously the more that happens. So yeah, it's powerful when it comes up.
Yeah. It's part of being a professional, though. It's like, it's one of the things you have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say something. Oh, wait a minute. Let me think a minute. It was a good point about, being sick of effects. Damn. Maybe it'll come back.
You can do it. You can find it.
I can't. Sometimes it comes back. I do this all the time.
Something else will spur it on.
Yeah. Maybe it wasn't that important anyway, but I'm glad that things worked out the way they did. But
Yeah.
I do look back and think about like, man, that would be every once in a while a movie will come out and I'll be like, man, like when The Walking Dead came out, when it first came out, I was like, fuck, I could have been working on zombies.
And like
so
a
much
lot of
fun.
zombies, like a
Tons of
lot of
zombies. That would be
zombies.
so much fun.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But I'll paint some zombies myself or
Yeah.
you
Well,
know.
it's tough because once you've been a pro for a bit, you also realize that how things look on the outside is never what they are
Oh
on
yeah,
the
yeah.
inside, right? It's
Yeah.
almost always different, except for the rare occasions like the one that you brought up, like the ones that you brought up. But 99.8% is just like, of course it's not like that because it's all branding, right? Like everything about the way a project presents and how it's talked about and how the people on the DVD talk about it, it's all groomed, it's
Oh
all
yeah, yeah.
very,
Totally
very carefely
sanitized.
designed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once you've been around that enough, you know it's not really like that. So you also can't just like get completely taken away by the way that these things present from the outside.
Right.
You,
Right.
if you were in there, there'd be plenty of problems. There'd be other things to deal with, and you'd probably get sick of I don't know, spilling a zombie's guts for the 1,000th
It's
time or
true.
something.
Yeah, yeah. I know.
Yeah.
Actually, I know a guy that worked on The Walking Dead,
Mhm.
and he posted something like 3 years into it or something. He's like, I never on Facebook. I think I never thought I'd say this, but I'm sick of doing zombie makeups. He was doing.
I
He
believe
was
it.
like one of the key makeup artists on the show. I think he was the key on-set makeup artist. And it's like, yeah, you do anything over and over, you're gonna get sick of it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, one of the big things about being an artist is that you're a creative, right? Like before anything
Right.
else, and it's like, for you to feel like a creative, at some point you've got to be doing new stuff,
Right.
and
Right.
often, right? It's like you didn't get into this stuff to just succeed every
Right.
time in
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
very
Right.
rigid way, like my favorite part of my practice is that kind of that feeling that I mentioned before. Like you just wake up one day and you're like, I got it. Like it's just
Yeah.
this new thing that came out of nowhere. Like that's the best part for me,
Right.
and there's just very few jobs that rely on that or ask for that over and over and over again. The nature of production is that you're going to nail it every time, right?
Right.
That's why we're paying you. So that just there's no way around it. That's going to cut off the like top level of creativity basically every
Right.
time, because
Yeah.
that top level comes with a significant failure rate, right? That's what makes it so that you're riding the edge, that you're really looking for
Right.
something new and doing something different. It's just the way it is,
Yeah.
and
I
you got
do.
to make your peace with it.
I mean, I do love that about, you know, being a professional in fine art or in production, but especially in production, because there's big money riding on it. Usually in fine art, if you fail, it's like your own ass, you don't get paid that week or whatever. You don't get paid for this. You don't get the sale if you don't pull it off well. But I do like that, that kind of pressure to have to do it every time.
Yeah.
It's like that I don't know. I like being able to do it every time. That's fun to me.
Yes.
Like,
no, I get that.
Because it's like, I remember when I first started painting in like 2000 is when I first started teaching myself to paint. And it's like, and you know how it is when you're first drawing, you can't do it every time. And so every time I do a painting, I'd be like, fuck, am I going to be able to pull this off? I don't know if I could do it. I did it on the last one, but I don't know if I could do it this time. And so it would be like scary. And that really screws up, or for me, it's my experience was it screwed up my, the way I painted. It made me too precious with what I was doing. And it's like, it got me too tight with things because I didn't want to take any chances and screw anything up, you know? So, but you just got to do it enough times to where you know how to always pull it off. And it's like, now I know I can pull it off. Even if I have to paint the whole thing over, it's like, I know how to do that too.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably going to start sending me down some of the dark roads, like some of the bigger critiques or worries or things like that. But I guess this is the place to do it.
Yeah.
But like you know, the feeling of like wanting to be virtuosic, right? Like that was a huge part of my learning and my career, right? Like I would say that there's a really big part of my personality that's like, I want to be, there's no nice way to say this. It's like, I want to be awesome. I want to be brutal. I want to just, who can keep up with him? Like, I want to be great. Right. Like, and it's always gross to say that out loud, but
I totally agree.
As part of being an artist. Like once you get in there and you're talking with other artists in an honest way, like we all have that. Right. So that was a huge part of my learning, right? Like, I know that, like, I don't want to mess up anymore. I want to win every time, right? Like, I want to be good every time. I want to know that nothing can stop me, right? And well, I don't know if anyone has ever succeeded at that in some ultimate sense, but the parts of it the times that I did succeed and I felt like I was getting much better at those things, I wanted more, right? I was like, especially once I was working, right? It was like, all right, I'm finishing one of these paintings a week. Let's do one every 2 days. Let's do one a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, oh, Steven, you're so fast. Like, let's put you in meetings with the clients. It's like, let's go. And then, and then I just like, I'm going into these creative sessions with the clients, like the money people. And like, I'm like drawing their ideas and I'm like, now I want to do this with no stress. Like, it doesn't even matter. And just like, I would stop preparing. I would just go in there and like, do dozens of drawings in a session and like just weird ego stuff. Like I stopped showing up with my laptop at one point. I was like, I just do them on paper now. I like, it was some week where I'd seen like Kim Jong-gi for the first time or something.
Right.
You know, I just do them on paper now, just markers, ink, no sketch. Like I was way out there, like just doing me while everyone at the meeting was like, you know, like, but it worked, right? And it was fine.
Yeah, you pulled it off. You held yourself to the fire and
yes,
and you did it.
I did pull it off. So but the darkness comes where at a certain point, you're like, who's benefiting from this? It's the masters. It's the people it's the big system, right? It's the
right.
It's the people with the money making all of the decisions.
Totally,
like,
yeah. I remembered the thing I was going to say.
All right, hit me.
You reminded me, just like you said. That was the part of a big part of my issue was I felt like, why am I killing myself? Like, why am I pouring my heart and soul into this when this director, I go on set and this guy, you can tell, just doesn't even give a shit whether the movie's going to be again. It's a gig. And I'm not talking about like Guillermo del Toro or any, good director.
I don't think anyone thought you were. I don't think anyone thought it was Guillermo.
But I've dealt with people where it's like, this is a gig for them and they don't give a fuck how the movie comes out whatsoever. It's like, okay, so I'm losing sleep at night because I can't get this director to realize that this one design is amazing and this one design's kind of lame and he wants the lame one. And I'm like trying to figure out ways of getting him to take a chance on this amazing design or this cool idea. And there's a point where you're like, am I stupid? Why am I killing myself when this guy doesn't give a shit? The guy running the thing or the producer or the money people or whatever, somewhere on the chain. Yeah. It's like, that was a big part of why I wanted to leave, because it made me feel like an idiot, kind of.
Yeah.
Like I'm just doing this to myself. And if I'm only doing it for the money, then this is not what I want to do. It's like, anyway, sorry to interrupt you, but I'm glad I remembered that.
Yeah, no, that we're totally aligning there. And it may sound, a lot of this stuff can sound really ugly to talk about, but I can't help but be honest about this stuff. It's like, it can sound a little job interview-y, like I care too much. Like that's my number one weakness. Right. It's like, it was my number one weakness to the tune of quitting, right? Like I'm out of here. Like, let's do something else. There's no other way to look at it, right? Like an artist's urges, right, are well, they're weird, right? And there's nothing in society to hold the desire to manifest realities whole cloth over and over again successfully, and God help you fast, right? There, what in society has a box for that? Nothing, right? So if you're like, I think we're probably similar. Like, we've been doing this our whole lives. We think about it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're trying to do it. I would only prefer to do it better, right? And I realize the amount of effort necessary there. It's like that urge, so huge, so powerful. It's really weird to enslave that to, like you said, those people who really don't care, and who, for them, they're just like, yeah, we'll make it and it'll make a ton of money because I already have a bunch of money, so I don't have to worry about risk. And just do exactly what I say. And it's like that, once you're privy to that and once you're in there, I think it chafes on almost everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know very few contented artists, right? Like I can count them on one hand, maybe, right? Like there's really,
like I said, it was a constant bitching. Everybody constantly throughout my career in effects, everyone was just bitching all the time about stuff like that. It's just kind of like the way it is. But I had a good friend of mine he was a super cynic, amazing sculptor, Mitch Devane, and he used to say, I always try and put my best foot forward and they step on it.
Yeah. That's it, man. That's really it.
It's like the people you're trying to help are stepping on your foot.
Yep. So I started looking for, it was a reaction to that and a bunch of other things, but all within that realm. Like, if you do this stuff long enough, you start to realize that, your best foot forward winds up hurting you because the incentives are all messed up. Like, I'm pretty fast, right? I'm a pretty fast artist. That wasn't a good thing, because once they know you're fast, they're like, oh, Steve's fast, give him the fast job. And the fast jobs suck, right? So you're only doing less artistically fulfilling, more stressful stuff because you're so fast, and you're good while you're fast. So it's like, in hindsight, I would go back and tell my younger self, like, just cool it. Like, like, don't, if you're going to go that fast, don't let them see it. Like, you don't want them to know that that's possible. Like, it's screwing you. It's screwing you at all of these different junctures. And there's all sorts of stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And
the way you present your designs. It's like, you know, you have to play a game. It's like, you can't show the best thing first. You have to, or you show I forget how it's done, but there was a way we used to do it to where it's like, oh, they're always going to go back to the first thing you showed them. So it's like, you know, they want 5 designs, but they're going to, it doesn't matter how good the other ones are. They're going to pick the first one because that's the one they saw. There was this cool design. They saw it first, even though the 5th one's better.
Yep.
You know what I mean? There's like all these games you have to play and it's like, it's like, please just let me make your project amazing. That's all I ask. I'm begging you.
But they won't let you.
Yeah, but they won't let you. It's like, that's what I mean. It makes you feel like you're going crazy. Like, why am I doing this?
Yeah. It's it becomes painful pretty quickly. Pretty quickly.
Painful.
Yeah. So you know, the design, it goes up and down with like, and every gig is different. That's also the other thing. Like, often when people ask me, like, how do you like freelance life and stuff like that, it's like, it depends on their job. You know,
true.
I do have to admit that, just if you were only to look at some jobs, it's like, that's perfect. Like, it was a blast the whole time. And then other jobs are like, I should have been a plumber, right? Like, why did I do it? So it changes like that. But yeah, a lot of stuff happened in my life. I learned more and more about the industries. I've been doing it since I was pretty young. Like, I started design work when I was 20, and then I started working full time at that studio when I was 21, 22.
Cool.
And then it was just like, learned a lot real fast. So then I started opening my eyes to other things and what I could do if I really like put my mind to opening up and trying other things. And and that led to things like teaching, doing the YouTube. A lot of big developments from that. Yeah. So yeah, I guess well, to where we started, like what's the arc of of my life story? I think that's basically caught up in some rough sense. Yeah. It's been a lot of waggling.
Right. Yeah. Of course, though. That's one thing I've discovered from doing this podcast is there's a ton of waggling. There's every artist's career is like a pinball, going down a pinball machine, bouncing back and forth. It's like, you know, we all kind of end up roughly maybe where we want to be, but we all went these insane routes to get there, and everyone is different. It's really weird. And there's usually linchpins that are similar, but the rest of the journey is like totally weird and different. It's really strange. You know, it's kind of cool actually. But
oh yeah.
I think freelance is great though, man. It's like that to me is, if I wasn't just focusing on my fine art, I would be doing freelance before going back to effects, because, you know, you're always working with new people, or jobs are changing. You know, I know that one thing in effects, it was more like a factory. It was like, okay, I gotta sculpt another fake nose, and it's like you don't even know really what the movie is. You just have a design and you sculpt the nose, or you sculpt the black eye, or you sculpt the cut off arm, or whatever. And it's like, okay, I've done this a million times, and it's fine. You know, you just put your headphones on, you find some music you want to hear, or a podcast or whatever, and it's not bad sitting there sculpting with your friends and having fart wars during your breaks and stuff.
Oh God.
There was some epic fart wars, but
I bet. Let's go full nuclear.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, Mitch was the master. But anyway, he's best sculptor and the best farter too.
Oh my God.
It was
incredible.
It was that pollo bowl every day at lunch.
Oh, that'll do it.
El Pollo Loco. But yeah, so it just was like, you know, it becomes more like a factory job, really. And it's, but I think if I were to kind of get back into concept stuff, I'd probably do creature design as a freelancer. It's like I could do that. I've done that before, because it's like I like the freedom. That's a big part, is not having to drive to work every day. That was honestly a big part of what was killing me, is traffic in LA every day, and
it's real.
Oh my God, it's horrible. It's horrifying. Talk about soul destroying. But you know, I don't know. I like the freedom of freelance overall, I think.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think as much as I miss the studio environment, there's a reason I haven't gone back. Right. Like I don't know. Like I said, it comes down to the work's not quite right, you know? So it would take a lot for me to, it'd take a lot for me to be willing to like commit to one place like that, you know? Every now and then you get a freelance gig where you wind up going in studio, right? Because the place is nearby and stuff like that. I've done a few gigs like that where I spend a month or two at a place just because it's convenient and things like that. But then once you're done, you walk out. And you move on. I think it would take a lot for me to like take a W-2 at a particular studio. Yeah. It would just, I'd have to have a lot of insight. I'd have to know a lot of people.
Reason.
Yeah. It'd be pretty precise.
I was always very like, I'm a super loyal person especially to I'm a loyal person in general. And but I was always like, every place I worked, I was very loyal to that company. I was like a company man. I was really like team player. And I'd always look down on the freelancers, you know, because it's like, you know, we'd offer them permanent positions or long positions, and they'd be like, no, I got this other gig. And after all those years, I'm like, they were right. They were right. Totally, you know, it's like I've been loyal to this one place for 10 years and this guy just laid me off, or I've been working here for 5 years and they laid me off. Told me in 2 days I didn't have a job there anymore. So it's like they have, that's kind of a way of, I don't know, it's a way of protecting yourself too, be freelance and not be at the whim of, you know, the place you're working to bring work in and not bring
they're a business, they're a company. I mean, if you read the language, they always betray it. They're like, we offer creative product, right? It's like it's very clear what they actually are. So yeah, you gotta, I mean, it's funny. You talk to students now, I mean, most of them have really tied up all of their self-esteem. And I did it too when I was young. Like they've tied up their self-esteem with like what job they're going to be at, like that get validated by a company, you know? And it's like, now I tell them like, if your dream is that someone will take advantage of you, yeah.
Yeah, right.
You're going to achieve it. I believe in you. Like you can do it.
So true.
It's going to happen for you, man. So it's like that is what these businesses are. And they'll never, you know, once you're in, they'll teach you, they'll show you over and over again that they are businesses, right? And no one will ever, no company, no matter how creative, no matter how out there, they will never make a decision that doesn't balance the checkbook. Never.
Right. Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like, and I'll tell you this, if you're like, no, my company did, they let go everyone but me. And like, they let go half the company and I'm still sitting there. They're very loyal to me. It's like, that just means you're not charging enough, baby. It has nothing to do with their loyalty.
It might be you, be you next time.
They're like, that guy, his rate is so low. We can float him so we don't have to onboard somebody else. Right. Like I just made someone very angry with that comment, but that was me. So trust me when I tell you that I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's not fun to think that way about yourself, and then talk to someone a couple years later and be like, oh, I was charging 1/5 what everyone else is charging. Right. Cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. No, now everything's clicking into place. Yeah.
I've had this conversation so many times with people. That's why it's so funny to me. But
real.
I mean, it's the nature of business. It's the nature of business. So you gotta deal with it. If you're gonna do that, you know, you gotta know what you're getting into. It's like, you know,
charge more. Good place to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Push it as far as you can.
And you got to be willing to not get the gig if you don't get your rate. It's like I still do freelance stuff on occasion, but since I become a fine artist and I've got my own reputation as an individual, I ask for more money, and if I don't get it, I don't do the job then. Because I don't have to, because I've got, you know, I can make my own money doing these weird little paintings here.
I actually think that's necessary. Like I really think,
absolutely.
Yeah,
you gotta be willing.
I think for any early artist out there, like I would try to hit that point as fast as you can. That's advice I'd give to most people. Like it's not healthy for you or anyone else to just feel betrothed to every gig that comes in.
Right.
Because all us artists, we have that. At least I think so. We all have that urge that like, if you don't have something else going on, if someone emails you about any job, you're like, I have to take it. Right. Like I'm an artist. Our opportunities don't come by. Like there's not a lot of chances.
Right.
Like you just get this very small mindset and you just feel like you have to do it. And and you do it, you torture yourself into it and you pitch low and stuff like that. And yeah, I think you need to find some way to inure yourself to those attacks. You know, you've got to have something else going on and something that lets you have some stability to raise your rate and ask for more.
Right.
You know, you gotta, when you say your number, there should be a slight pause. You know, it's never, if you're saying your number and it's like, let's go, can you start tomorrow? It's like that. Oh boy, you messed up. Like that just means you got to go higher next time. There's got to be a little, if you hear like a breath over the phone, like that's good. That means you're in a good place. You know, that's what you want to do.
So what's your dream job? Like what you're talking about, how, you know, some jobs are amazing and you're with it, you know, you had a great time on them, some not so much. What kind of job is like an amazing job for you? What would you be excited to do as a freelancer?
As a freelancer specifically? Like
as an artist. Yeah. As, you know, just like, is it what would it be? You know, there's so many different things that you do. You've worked with like a million different clients, seemingly probably doing all kinds of crazy shit.
I've done a lot of wild stuff. Yeah.
Like what's your ultimate? Is it like doing these kind of monster battle scenes, or is it like weird creatures, or what is it? I'm just curious. What would be the thing that would make you like go, man, I'm so into this. I really want to do this gig.
I think, all right. So first let me do a digression and then I'll attack that question more directly. So first off, I do think I'm the kind of person that I'm the only person who can give myself that gig. Like all right, how to put it, like when I'm illustrating Paradise Lost or something like that, right? Which is something that I've done a bunch just for myself, right?
Mhm.
That feels like I'm at the edge of my ability. That
Right.
feels like I am doing the most complicated thing I'm capable of. Like I'm translating extremely difficult source material. I'm adding my own voice to it. I'm executing it with hand drawing skills, traditional most of the time. I'm trying to push it to a really far level of finish. A lot of the drawings have multiple elements, figures, anatomy, like a lot of stuff from my imagination. It's like I'm just about at the top of my
Right.
I'm doing the high wire act when I do that, right? And it feels good. It feels
Right.
really
That's
good.
fun, right?
It's the best. It really is the best. And it's one of the few things that I can do that when I finish one, I'm like, I'm beat. I'm like tired. It's
Right. I
like
know. It totally
the
wipes
good
you
tired.
out.
Yeah,
Wipes you
yeah,
out
yeah.
in a good way. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it feels so
Good
good.
tired. I know.
It feels so good. So that for me is like, that's a North Star, right? And then I asked myself, like, what's the job version of that? What's the gig
Right.
version of that? And it's like, who needs that? Nobody
Yeah.
needs that.
That's
Like
true.
I've
That's
I've
true.
dude, I've been around just long enough, right? Because I know I'm young, right? But I've done enough gigs, I've been up with enough people. I've been around just long enough that I do kind of have that realistic view, like, oh, right, nobody effing needs that. No, that's not what people need. Like clients hire for like, we're making a specific product. You're relevant for like this tiny little
Right.
sliver of it. And like, can you deliver it on time?
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, a lot of this stuff sounds ugly when you say it outright, but I know other artists feel this stuff
It's
inside.
true though.
Like my best, no one can afford to pay me for it. Like my best, like a drawing that I spend like a really long time on,
Hmm.
and I refine every part of it. It's like no art director wants to pay me for that. They're like, you just like do half of it because like the budget, like it's good enough halfway through, to do
Right.
the job. It's like there's very few gigs that need that can afford to pay for it,
Right.
stuff like that. So I sort of, for a while, that was dispiriting, right? I was like, well, what? I've been preparing for a war that's not coming, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what it felt like a lot of the
Yeah.
time. And I got over it. I got over the dispirited part, and I realized that it just meant that I had to take on greater responsibility for myself. I was like, all right, I'll stop looking to other people for answers and things like that. That just means that you got to find a way to make that a sustainable part of your life, and to find ways to monetize it
Hmm.
and to do it in such a
Yeah.
way that it's not a waste of time and things like that. A very fine art approach, right?
Right. Right.
And yeah, that's my like nuanced answer to that question of like, what's your dream job? It's like, I'm done looking for other people to hand me
Right.
things, like I really don't.
Well, it sounds to me like your dream, your ultimate gig is doing whatever the fuck you want,
Yeah,
making work for yourself.
that's
You know?
really it, man. It's like how many gigs have I started where I'm like, this is everything's lining up, the person, the job, the time, the budget.
It's gonna be
like
so amazing.
yes, like everything's perfect, and then a week in it falls apart, it implodes, it decompresses like the blob, and
Right.
everything wasn't what you thought it was, and it's like, come on, man. This is, if we're just gonna keep, betting on illusions over and over again forever, it's like it gets tiring after just a couple times. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I just don't have. I love creatives, and I have a lot of faith, and companies still make amazing things, right? Like I'm not
Yeah.
saying like there's not great gigs out there, but you've been doing this for a while. Sometimes you're like, this is pure luck. Sometimes like right place, right time. Like even companies
Right.
that have amazing track records, right? They put out their next thing and it's like all over the news. Like they lied to their fans. They destroyed the company. They
Right. Oh
ruined
yeah.
the lives of all their employees. It's like, it's a crapshoot. It's a
Right.
crapshoot, man.
Yep.
Like you can't trust other people to just hand you. It'd be different if you were like a quantitative at a capital management firm, right? Maybe there's like objective criteria, and it's like you work for a hedge fund and you can really figure out like they have the dream job. I don't know. I'm not a numbers guy, but in art,
Right.
an artist's dreams are so big and expansive that it's like, how can you reasonably expect another person to hand you that stuff, right?
It's
like
true. It's true.
can,
It's almost too much to ask
I think it is.
any business, especially,
I think
maybe if you're like maybe if you're like a super high end, fancy blue chip fine artist and you've got like a billionaire benefactor, maybe then you'll get that. But that's about it.
Yeah, I think so.
And you can't, that's the other thing too about effect stuff is, you can't, you can't expect them to give that to you. Cause it's like, I remember thinking, I had a realization at one point. It's like, it's not even fair for me to expect to get this kind of creative fulfillment from them. It's not their job to make me creatively fulfilled. It's their job to run their business.
Yep.
And so yeah, exactly. So I guess that's for me was the point where I'm like, okay, I have to do my own thing then. It's like people bitch and they don't go out and do their own thing. So it's like, why are you getting mad at the people that are hiring you for a job when you don't have the balls to go do it yourself? For yourself. So it's kind of like misplaced anger, which I really feel like I did that a lot, where it was not really fair, even though they're big corporations. So who gives a shit? But it's not fair. You can't expect that.
Amen. Though, seriously, that misplaced anger, that was a big hurdle for me over the years. Yeah, I really had to do a lot of inner work to figure out, like parse out, like how much of this is you being an asshole, how much of this is unrealistic expectations, how much of this is their failings, right? Like, like anything, something like it's nuanced, right? There is,
absolutely.
It's a coordination of things. So it took a long time to sort of, reckon with that and all of that. But but beyond that, like the more straightforward answer, like I just, it goes into the territory of like being unreasonable and being unrealistic of what other people can give me. But if there was going to be a dream gig, it's not like what I'm drawing necessarily, right? It's not the content necessarily. It's like, I think it'd be like being partnered with like people who I feel are truly like elevating me creatively, like being in that rare sizzling environment where, even though like I'm very confident in myself, right? Like I need to, for this to land right, I need to say this right. Like I'm not one of those self-deprecating artists. Like I think that's annoying, right? Like I don't like that. I'm very confident in myself. I know I'm good. I know I have a lot to learn, but I know I'm good at what I do. To be in an environment where I feel like I'm at the bottom of the barrel again, it's like, let's go. Now we're talking. Like, I don't like being in meetings where I'm like, great, I'm the most creative person here. Like that's not a good feeling when that's not supposed to be the situation, right? Like, it's not a good feeling. Like, I think
I agree.
The dream gig would be where that feeling comes back, where it's like, I'm just, it's all giants and like everyone here is more clever, more cunning, more creative, more experienced, and we're just like making something nuts, Well,
plus you I mean, that's the way to get better too. Like I came into that when I started working at Rick's. I was like, I'd worked at this one company for 10 years and I was kind of like the art lead there. And I just thought I was great, and I was good, but I wasn't great, and I got over to Rick's and then I was like, totally put me in my place, oh shit, everybody, everybody in the art department's better than me. And I'm used to being the, what I thought was like the best or one of the best at the place I was working. And, but as soon as I was able to not let that bum me out, I was like, oh, I'm going to learn from these people. This is inspiring rather than depressing. So I let myself be inspired by them and just, within a year, I was better than I'd made more progress than like 5 years at that old job. I was just seeing like how good it can be done. And I was like, oh shit, I didn't even know you could do it that good because I'd never seen it done that well before, That's
the best feeling, man. That's
and that can,
when you've got like a year of that, that's like that's like life
Right.
autopilot. Like,
Totally.
oh my God. It's so clear. You just wake up, you're like, just do your best. You got to catch up. They're all so good. And then you're just like grinding it out, thinking about everything, asking questions. Like I've had the great honor in my life of having several of those periods, and damn, it's like, those are life autopilot, those moments. It's like, those are nice, warm, fuzzy years where it's just like,
absolutely.
You know exactly what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
And then when you're not in one of those periods, and it's more like, you're erecting the whole facade yourself and doing the business stuff. And it's like those periods, those feel like work. Those don't feel like autopilot. That's like every day you're like, what even is the right question to ask? Like, how am I going to push this thing forward?
Yeah.
A lot of work. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Those are good times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Super, super fun. Oh my God. It was weird. When I went to Rick's, it was like, I worked there for 5 years, and I came in and he had like kind of like a regular crew of lifers that have been there forever. And I was kind of a new guy, and I sort of got in because my friend, like, again, we're talking about friends getting you jobs. My friend Bill Sturgeon got me a job painting rubber ears for the Who's on the Grinch, but it's like, I was the art lead over at Alterian, I was the lead sculptor, designer and stuff. And so I was like, I needed a job, and he's like, it'd be a good way to get in here. You're way overqualified, but eventually you could move into the sculpting department. And so I just painted all these ears, like one Caucasian flesh color with an airbrush, one color pink airbrush, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these rubber ears. It was really like, oh God. But I knew I'd have an opportunity to show what I could do to Rick at some point. And then I did get that opportunity when Planet of the Apes came around, and he's like, and everyone was just like, everyone sculpt an ape maquette.
Yeah.
And so then I just stayed in the sculpting department from there. But I don't know, what were we talking about before that? There was another point I was getting to.
We were talking about feeling like you're in that environment where everyone's bringing you up, elevating you.
Yeah. So it was like, once I got into the sculpting department, that's when I was with all these amazing people, because the paint department was like one dude all cut off, and I didn't know anybody. Oh, it was terrible. I felt awful because I didn't know. And back then I was really shy, and it was really uncomfortable. I'd eat lunch by myself, and it was just like, drive to the park and sit there and listen to the radio and eat my sandwich. But I ended up getting in the sculpting department, and then it was like, oh shit, I got Kazu, the mythical Kazu. This dude's amazing. Like, he did the Gary Oldman makeup on the Winston Churchill makeup.
Wow.
That's Kazu. Yeah. It's like, they called Kazu out of retirement. He actually is one of the only other people that left the business to get into fine art. He makes these giant, super realistic silicone heads of celebrities and artists and stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, amazing.
I wonder if I've seen them.
I'm sure you have.
Pretty iconic. I've probably seen them.
I'm sure you have. But they called him. Gary Oldman said, "I'll only do this movie if you have Kazu do my makeup." And so they pulled him out of retirement to do that. So he basically was able to charge. I bet you he charged him up the ass. It's so amazing. I'm sure he did. I'm sure. But that's like, can you imagine how cool that would be? Where it's like, just like, I'm the best in the business. He was the best. He's known as the best. I'm leaving because you suck. I'm sick of being treated like shit. I'm going to do my own stuff. And then they have to come begging you to do their movie because their lead actor won't do it without you. I mean, that is like, I had him on a podcast before too, and I asked him about that. It's like so cool. It's like the coolest thing ever.
Sounds very validating.
So
that's
anyway,
a good feather for the cap right there.
Yeah. And he's like super chill. He would never brag about something like that too, which is the other cool thing. But as soon as I was working amongst those guys, Matt Rose, Mitch Devane, all these just like powerhouse guys, it was like, I felt like I was just on my first movie again, like working on the Blob when I was like the little guy sweeping the floors, doing molds on the Blob. My first gig when I was like 19 or something, or 18. I forget how old I was, and working my way up. And then it was like that kind of having that input was just like, oh man, it was so cool and so much fun. Everything kind of got way more fun after that point.
Yeah. You need, I think it's a beautiful rite of passage kind of a thing to sort of wind up. I mean, if you go down the production roads, I think it's a beautiful rite of passage to be put in one of those situations where the team is elevating you and you're trying to catch up, and you're just surrounded by examples, clear examples of how to get better. And they're right there. It's like, it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah. Ironically too, it's funny because it's this guy, I talk about him on the podcast all the time. He won't come on because he's just not that kind of guy. Mitch Devane. Everybody in the effects business knows Mitch Devane is like,
I've heard you mention him many times.
The best sculptor in the world. He's the guy that like he was so kind of bitter about the industry, overly bitter, I would say. But he got me thinking about, I was sort of like in this blissful ignorance, like, oh, I'm lucky to be here. This is amazing. This is cool. And he started going like, this is bullshit when they do this and that and this and that. And he got me sort of thinking about wanting to do my own thing, and really doing it. And like, he was super supportive every time I'd mention, I'm going to learn how to paint, or I'm going to try and get into fine art. He was always like cheering me on. So it's ironic that he was like the guy that inspired me in effects to be a better artist. And he was really open and tried to, taught me how to do pour sculpting and just everything. He would teach anybody. He was so open with his information, but he was also the guy that was like pushing me, go do your own thing. You won't regret it.
Yeah.
And it was so cool. So it's like, I really kind of I feel like I owe him. I always tell him, it's like, you were one of the big reasons I was able to go out on my own was that.
That's beautiful.
Sport, it was really cool.
I mean, he's right though. I mean, if I could just react to the I'm lucky to be here feeling, right? I think that's like a sickness in artists these days. It's like, I think you're lucky to be here. Like once you get into a job, you're lucky to be here. You are briefly, like very briefly, right? And then after that, you gotta step on that. You are not lucky to be here. It's not
right.
It's not, that's a bad mindset. It's like, they're lucky to have you. Like, let's be very clear. All right. Okay. I'm going to go into the darkness again.
Do it. Dark Art Society.
Yeah. Pete. Yeah. Let's go. Let's go into it. Yeah. It's like everything in the world is made by, for the most part, right? It's funded by and made by people who can't make stuff. They don't know how to make stuff, right? The current culture that we live in, just by chance, right? Just by the conditions of the world, and it can change any day, but the current culture that we live in, the number one people that we reward are people who already have money. Right. That's how the world already works. The most valuable thing you can offer in this world right now is that you're already rich. That money just
it's so ridiculous.
More money, but it's borne out in every corner of the world, right? So even if your AD is very creative, even if your creative director is very creative, like, oh, Steven, you don't know my producer. It's like somewhere above them at the top is someone who doesn't have a creative bone in their body.
But has all the money.
All the money in the world. So in that respect, when you're looking at you are not lucky to be here. You are saving their ass day in and day out. And if your reaction to that is like, but they could just get another person, it's like, all right, if you're bad and replaceable, I don't know what to tell you. Right. If you actually do your job well, right, and you have anything like a voice or a viewpoint, or you feel like you can look at things and you understand them, right? I hate to say it, but just no, you're helping them. You're making the thing. And we live in a weird, it might just be artist culture, right? It might just be the way that we got programmed and stuff like that. But we live in a culture where artists are like, when you're surrounded by the producers and the money people and the project managers and stuff like that, everyone is very careful to sort of try to make you think you're not the only person making the thing, right? Like there's just this weird tone, right? But if you've ever been that person on a team, it doesn't get made unless you show up that day and you poke it into place and you move all the stuff. And I am happy that I'm not the one collecting the notes via email, right? I'm very happy about that. And that is a job that I wouldn't want to do. And I need someone else to do it, right? But it is very weird that in light of that fact, most artists walk around feeling like they're the bottom of the barrel. Like they're the least valuable, just lower than a worm in most cases. And I think that that's like a weird sickness that some people higher up do give. You know, we've all met jerks, right? There's definitely jerks out there and stuff like that they will actively propagate that. But it's also a thing that artists have passed to each other a little bit, you
just
know?
Like, just like the starving artist thing as well.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a bad myth that keeps
Yes.
getting put down in the next generation.
Yep. And it's like, you only have to see a couple of your heroes acting like that, right? To think it's real and to be like, all right, well, if that's true for them, right? They're the best, then I better get in line. I suck. I'm worth nothing. Like, it's like, oh God, it's sickening. And it's just not the truth. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's like, I do know that artists we're in a bad, I think we're in a tough spot these days. Right. I think, when I look out at the world, right, when I look out at what gets a lot of attention, what gets a lot of money, things like that. Like I said, there's nothing more valuable than already having money, right? That does everything. Beyond that, we sort of live in a rotated time where the culture seems to reward the curators more than the creators, right? So if you look at like YouTube, for example, and stuff like that, tastemakers, that is to say the people who make the reviews, the people who say this is the best thing to watch, or just sit there and go, I like this better because of this, and I don't like this as much because of this, almost to a person, they always have 50 times the followers and the influence and the people who made the thing, even if it's the thing that they like, right? So curators are currently more valued by culture than creators, which as far as I'm concerned is, like I said, it's rotated, it's reversed, it's flipped on its head, right? And the world is cyclical, culture is cyclical. Like I do believe that could literally change any day, right? I think that a lot of that is created by the way the algorithms work, the way, you know, just some guys in boardrooms in Silicon Valley, just their preferences decide the way people consume art. And it's like that's the world that we live in these days, you know? And, you know, it's something to be grokked, it's something to be dealt with, but I think most of all it needs to be acknowledged, right? And we need to admit that that's kind of what's going on here. And in light of all that, you know, if you for the artist, for the individual, it's like, realize that all of these factors are hypnotizing you into thinking that you don't matter and that your practice is very small and miserly and it doesn't, it's like, it's a miracle if anyone cares.
You're lucky to be there. You're lucky to be hired. You're lucky to be doing that.
Forget it. It's not true. Are you kidding me? Like I know there's maybe a lot of art out there these days. I know that a lot of people say that the art is like oversaturated, like there's so many images and stuff like that. And it's like, maybe that's the case. I don't know where you draw the line, like what's too much, what's too little, right? I don't know how you would ever make that distinction, but it doesn't change the fact that people love images and art, right? And they want to, and they do, I mean, they surely consume it a lot, but more than consumption, people want a connection to these things, right? People want to have as powerful an experience of art as possible, right? I do think that that's true for most people, no matter how highbrow, lowbrow, whatever. And maybe culture is making that harder. Maybe it requires more of like a self-lift to insist on that connection instead of consumption, but that will never stop being important, no matter how much the people who can't make a goddamn thing try to make you think that it isn't important so that they don't have to charge, so they don't have to pay you a lot.
Right. I think to add to that, I think that that's another thing Mitch kind of clued me into as well. I think working, because at Rick's, you know, we were working on the biggest movies of that era. You know, he got the best movies. He got the biggest budget movies. And when there's more money, there's more people at the top that don't have any artistic ability or talent calling the shots. And I definitely, you get a feeling that they are jealous of you, that you can do it. and it's like they don't want to say it. And it's almost like this. It's very under the surface, and so I can't tell you. You know, I'm sure you've had this happen to where people have no business making a suggestion. Will make a suggestion just so they can have their fingerprint on it and say, "I did that."
And then suddenly they like it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now they'll talk about it. Now they'll bring it up in a meeting.
Right.
Like, after I said this, now I think it's quite good.
They'll brag to their friends at the golf club or whatever. And, you know, that because it's like they're able to, you know, kind of vicariously have that talent through you. And there's just a feeling, there's a definite, I've felt there's a definite feeling of like, oh, what's the word? Like an adversarial kind of relationship in a sense. Like they almost see you as like the enemy because they need you to do that. Like you're saying,
a bad one. We'll see.
Yeah. Absolutely. We're in the dark zone.
Yeah. Some people, let's be clear. Some people have emotional intelligence, but it's not guaranteed, right? It's not at all guaranteed. Yeah.
So it's like but it's often seemed to me like the bigger budgets, the more that was the case, at least in my experience, because the more money there is, the more risk there is, the more money there is to lose. So you've got people putting their fingers in, thinking they're going to save the show. They're going to make sure the studio makes a shitload of money. But it's a weird thing, though. It's a weird thing, that unsaid kind of thing, to where it's like you kind of get the feeling like they're envious because they know they can't, no matter what they did, they can't do it. They can't do it, and they need you. And it's almost like they don't want to need you. Because they're used to being the shit. They got all the money and all the power, but they can't do it. They can't do that thing. And it's like, you know, these people like that, megalomaniacs at the top with all the money, it's like pisses them off. They can't do everything. You know, it's like,
I think so.
It's just a weird thing. It's a weird thing you don't think about until you kind of experience it and are in the middle of it. It's like,
there's also a weird tendency to just like, like I had heard those stories before I got into the industry, and there's a feeling like, nah, it can't be. Like, it's like totally gonna happen to you.
Yeah. Well, no, that person with all the money, why would they want anything else? They already have everything. They got all the money and power.
They just want to hand it out and not have their fingerprint on it. It's like, that's not how they got it. That ain't it, man. Right? That ain't it. Yeah, no, not at all.
I don't know. I always say, I've said from the beginning, you know, if I would have stayed in the business, if all the projects were like Tool videos or Guillermo del Toro movies, because those were, well, just the fun stuff, and working for someone you respect. You know, it was great working for Rick because, you know, I respected him as an artist. He was amazing. And Guillermo del Toro is a great artist, and he knows what looks good. And he knows, and he doesn't treat artists like shit either. He he's an artist, so he respects artists. And it's like a lot of time that's not the case. They're not artists, you know.
People on that level, like what you were asking me before, like what would a dream gig be? And I was like, it's about that environment. It's like, it's the Guillermos of the world.
It's people, like, but there's so few of those dudes, though. That's the bummer.
You can be Guillermo del Toro, and I don't know him. I don't know his business, but I'm sure it's still hard as hell for him to get a movie made.
It is.
I'm sure. Like, he still probably has to pitch it every time. There's still doubters, and he's like, no, it's gonna work because of this.
When I was working with him, he had like 5 things he was pitching, and I don't know that any of them got made. And he was at one point he was trying to get the Lovecraft film that
Mountains of Madness.
Mountains of Madness. We did maquettes for that, design stuff. It was fucking amazing. It would have been like The Thing times, John Carpenter's The Thing times a million. It would have been the dream job. The dream job. And Tom Cruise was going to be the lead. Tom Cruise was into it. He came.
It would have been dope.
It would have been amazing. And he wouldn't back down off the R rating. He said it has to be R rated. And I think they wanted to put because it was such a big budget. I think they wanted to put a romantic lead in, or some kind of romance story in with it. And he's like, no, this is the script.
Or a kid goes into the city with them. It was all the way down.
Yeah.
Like how did this stowaway child? They're on the plane. Oh no, we got to bring her with us down into the cyclopean nightmare.
But he was, it was, you know, he just, I think he was shocked that they turned him down because it was so amazing. And they didn't want to do an R-rated film for that kind of money, which would have required. And then they fucking blew it, because he ended up getting an Oscar, and he might get another Oscar for Nightmare Alley, you know. So maybe he'll be able to get it done.
I hope so.
Now
I'll be there day one.
Oh my God, I know. There's a job I'd go back to effects for. I mean, I would love that. It'd be so amazing.
That novella in particular was hugely influential on me when I was.
Oh yeah, you're a Lovecraft fan.
Yeah, I bumped into. I read it early. I forget why. What was it? I started reading a webcomic when I was pretty young, like 12, called Penny Arcade. It was like an old video game actually it's still up, but it was a video game webcomic that's been around forever. And the guy who wrote it, he was always saying Lovecraft was his biggest influence. And I love the way he wrote. His name is Jerry Holkins. And I was just like, I love the way he wrote. And he was like, I just try to write like Lovecraft. And I was like, I'm going to go find it. So I read Call of Cthulhu when I was like 12 or something like that. Yeah, like really, really young. Loved it. Yeah, super influential on me. God, I would love, Mountains of Man. I've seen I don't know if it was actually leaked, but like the leaked concept art that they did for that.
Oh, I haven't seen that. I'd like to see that.
There's some stuff out there. Who knows if it's actually what it is? Like, you know,
I would know probably.
I should go check it out.
I think I saw a lot of that and did a lot of it too. I mean, some of the stuff I did, Photoshop stuff I did for that was like, I was just like, this is so cool.
It'd be so good. I hope he gets to do it.
I know, it just would be so cool. It was so different. I
think now's the time. You know, we're speaking of dark arts, it's like dark is, I don't know, I feel like dark is going mainstream, you know, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
A lot of factors, you know, I who knows what it'll become like, but I think there's definitely, people are much more willing to take it on and to consume it sort of mainstream. Like, I don't know if you play video games, but From Software, the guys who make Dark Souls and things like that.
Yeah.
I think they contributed in a big way, because those are like now they're major games. Like they're the games. It's like that's right. Like people are more inclined to talk about Dark Souls and Bloodborne than they are Call of Duty now.
Oh yeah, so I always get people on Instagram like, it'd be so cool if you did something for Dark Souls.
So I remember years ago, maybe like 8 years ago, 7 years ago, anyway, before I'd played any of their games, I used to get comments on my Instagram posts saying all the time that like, it reminds me of Dark Souls. And I'd never played. I didn't know what it was. I used to get annoyed at those messages. And now I see them and I'm like, what an honor, you know?
Yeah.
But it's funny how things change. But that's as dark as, that's like really, it's Lovecraft, like tentacles, eyeballs, like, and everyone's like, yay, our favorite. Like it's going, they did something to bring it more into the mainstream.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think that the tattoo culture has really done a lot too. That's one thing I noticed when I started doing tattoo conventions, is that, man, they're so into dark stuff. They're into Lovecraft. They're into the nerdy side of tattooing. Like I remember this one tattoo artist told me when I was first getting familiar with that whole scene, he's like, there's the thug side of tattooing, and then there's the nerd side. You want to stick with the nerd side. Nice. So it's like the nerdy side of it was like people like us, you know, and people into monsters and they're you know, I had been so used to just trying to justify why I was doing this dark stuff as fine art. Right. When I'm going to meet all these tattoo artists, it's like, that was just normal for them. They're like, oh, it's cool. And just the way I felt, like, I don't see it as dark. I see it as cool. Yeah. I see it as beautiful and awesome and neat and makes you feel good, you know? And so, I mean, that's what the whole purpose of the podcast is to try and like get people to I don't know, trying to get the message out that it's okay to like it, even if it's like, it doesn't mean you're a weirdo. It's like darkness is part of the human psyche. It's part of the human experience.
Yeah, man.
It's like, so why shouldn't there be art that reflects that, and why it's okay to, I think it's healthy.
Yeah, you're gonna cut off a whole huge segment of human internality just based on prejudices, like whatever.
Right.
But
right.
yeah, I'm just like you and like many other people who do, even if it's not dark, just like not what people usually think of as like why make art. It's like I sometimes get questions like when I'm streaming or something like that, like, do you ever creep yourself out with your drawings?
Yeah.
Like, no, like what?
I wish I could.
That'd be awesome. Cool. Like I'd be interested in trying it, but like I just think they're cool. I do them because they're cool. I'm not doing it because I'm scared or something like that. Like I just think it's rad. Like the
absolutely.
Basically the only feelings I feel about my art are frustration while I'm making it sometimes, or this is cool, and that's it. Right. Yeah, it's rad, dope. Like that. Exactly. It's that feeling over and over again, which is weird because it's like it's not like I am motivated to do the kind of art that I do based on like dark subjects and things like that, right? Like I would be being disingenuous if I claimed I wasn't grappling with dark things and working through my own stuff. And I've had
who isn't though?
Yeah,
that's the thing. Everybody is.
But it's weird that, or I guess it's just interesting that even though that's the case, right? Even though I'm working through depression, anxiety, grief, things like that, when I do my art, I still am only doing it because it's cool. Because
right.
Like that's still totally. It's like it's grief and cool, right? Like they're never separate,
totally, man. It's people
mourning and cool.
Yeah. I remember I did a podcast interview for another podcast that was kind of more like mainstream art, just regular. It wasn't, it was like happy art kind of.
Yeah.
And
horses and fields.
I remember they were really cool. It was a great time. It was probably one of my best interviews because I really was like I was trying to spread the good news of dark art, and I was really like
nice
spoke well about it, very why are words escaping me today? Anyway, I did a good job on it. But I remember watching it back, and I think it was at the end, kind of like the wrap up where they record it separately. The guy was like, yeah, I don't know, man. If I did art like that, I would just be depressed all the time, I think. And I was like, no. It makes me feel good. It makes me
really
feel
good.
Like, it makes me feel like you feel when you're painting your ocean scenes or whatever. Yeah. It's like same thing. It's not as much as it's, I think on some subconscious level, it's tapping into societal stuff below the surface in some weird cosmic way. I think an energetic way. It's kind of like touching on anxieties, cultural issues, and like the darkness of being alive. There's an aspect to life that is darkness and scary and horrifying. As much as it's commenting on that, it's still like I'm just repeating what you're saying. I'm still doing it just for fun. And it's like I don't know why it's fun. I just, I've kind of stopped. I have a lot of, theories on it. It seems to me, it seems to me like it's the juiciest subject. It's got so much. To me, it's like when I think of like painting something that was traditionally positive or something like a hell realm, to me, it's like, oh, the hell realm was way more interesting. It just seems man, so much more.
All the artists of history have known that. They're always smiling out when they paint hell, and then they paint heaven, and all the saints are looking down at hell like, wish I was there. There's hell up there. Heaven sucks, man. Hell's where it's at. It's all flesh and teeth and dripping. Oh, that hurts. Oh God. Like it's all the good stuff,
Yeah, it's like the Garden of Earthly Delights too. I always talk about that. It's like, what part of that painting is the famous part? It's the hell part. That's the part that everyone talks about. They don't talk about the other part because it's boring.
People don't even know Paradiso and Purgatory are there, right?
You right. I know.
They're like, huh? Really?
Yeah. Right. Right.
Go figure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's the good stuff, man. I mean, like you, I have a lot of theories. I certainly I have experienced the full range of emotion making these kinds of art and things like that. But yeah, at a certain point, you stop questioning it. You know, I very rarely butt up against. I'm sure it's different for you in fine art, right? There's different considerations there, but for me, I don't really butt up against friction on it
Right.
anymore.
Yeah.
Like I don't
So
really.
I'm in that too. Like nowadays I don't, but when I was first starting, it was
Yeah.
like I always had to kind of like explain myself and try and like justify why I'm showing with all these pop surrealists and hot rods and
Yeah. Yeah.
girls with big eyes and stuff. It's like,
Makes sense.
yeah. But now
Yeah.
it's like it's gotten to a point where I don't catch any shit for it, which is great.
It's freeing. I mean, I think people are, I don't know, hopefully more open. You know,
Mhm.
people are more exposed to more things. You know, they've
Right.
seen, they're, are just, we're consuming at a greater and greater rate.
Right. That's
You
true.
know
That's true.
how, so they're just, they've just seen more of it
Mhm.
out there and things like that. So I think that helps a lot. But
I think horror movies are a big part of it too, because horror movies are
for
huge.
sure.
Stephen King.
Yeah.
That's I always say it's like, why should we feel so like as artists that we can't make it in fine art doing dark stuff when you've got Stephen King
Yeah.
is like about as mainstream as it gets, and he's like a hardcore
Yeah.
horror guy.
Yeah.
So it's like, why can't we do that in the art world?
My
They're,
my favorite cue on this, I talk about this with my wife all the time. For a very long time, Thriller was the most successful song of all time. And
right.
if you listen to Thriller, it is a Halloween song.
Oh, totally. And the whole video is all zombies and werewolves. It's like,
it's a pop song. It's a pop song, the most successful pop song of all time for a very long time. And there's literally a lyric in that song where Vincent Price says, "Grisly ghouls from every tomb are closing in to seal your doom." So it's like people get this stuff, man. Like it's not.
And that was in the 80s. That was in the 80s too. So it's like, I feel like it's this sort of like dark horror, whatever you want to call it, aesthetic. It's like has gotten into different parts of the culture. And I guess personally, I feel like I'm trying to get it into the fine art end of things more. But it's like even heavy metal has had a big effect on people accepting dark stuff as Marilyn Manson and all that shit from the 9 Inch Nails. It's like all that stuff. It's all dark art. It's all dark art. So
yeah, I mean, I have some friends, some art friends who, like, when I met them, like I'd known them online and stuff for a long time. And then when I finally met them, they were like, I'm thinking of one person in particular who said to me, like, "Your personality does not match your art." And I thought that was so funny. And I was like, "What? Like the way I dress? That I'm not panicking right now, or like brooding in a corner? Like, what do you want from me?"
Exactly. That's again. It comes up so often that it's a cliche on this show, but the dark art people, 99.9% of them are the nicest people. Yep. They're super cool. They're super friendly. They want to support each other. They don't care if you do dark art or not. Yeah. They appreciate all kinds of artwork. They're sensitive. They're animal lovers. They're really kind people. And I think personally, I think that's one of the coolest aspects of the whole dark art scene, is that it's so weird because it's just so unexpected. You tend, at least for people, to be more, like you said, more broody and I
think it makes sense, because it's like you're getting it out, right? You're like you're making it, like when I'm doing, like if I'm doing Paradise Auspicious or something like that. And it's like, I have to say, like, this isn't the only kind of thing I do. Like, you heard me talk, I work for theme park companies for freelance for years. Like a huge part of my practice is drawing happy cloud animals around a roller coaster and stuff like that. Like, I'm good at that stuff too. Yeah. But this is the stuff that I do for myself. And it's like, when I'm thinking about a piece or like I'm writing about it, like, what the heck am I going to do? It's like, I'm engaging earnestly, like, what is mortality? What is the answer to this piece of existential dread? Like, what does it mean if there's a devil and things like that? I'm like, you're grappling with these things in what I think is a healthy, conducive way. So you're sort of like, you're dumping a lot of that. If there's any negative energy associated with it, you're dumping it into the work and like working through it in a very therapeutic way. So then like, yeah, a lot of these people who do this stuff, it's like, well, I already got it out in the art. Like, I'm not stressed. Like, I'm not like, you know, I feel like I made some traction on like what happens if there's a devil, you know,
Right,
like,
right.
it's pretty interesting.
I mean, if you want to get more philosophical about it, I guess it's like, it's very metaphorically alchemical in a way, where you're like you're basically, you know, the whole thing about turning lead into gold. It's like you're taking this raw material, this junky thing, this crappy thing, and you're turning it into something amazing. And that's sort of what, another thing I love about dark art in theory is, you know, you're taking the dark stuff and you're transmuting it into something good.
Yes.
Rather, you know, if it sits inside of you, that's when it's bad. And when you deny it, that's when it's bad. That's like a total Jungian psychology thing. If you don't deal with the issue, it's going to come out in a bad way and hurt you. And it goes right along with you know, healthy psychology is like digging it out. And the cool thing is, as artists, we're able to take that and turn it into something beautiful, and something that other people who maybe don't have that aren't artists can then look at and go, oh yeah, it's like, I feel that way too. And that makes me feel better that it's out there, you know? And so it's amazing. And you know how dark everything is in the world. It's kind of so appropriate.
It's a beautiful thing.
Now.
It's a beautiful thing. I mean, art saved my life with that stuff. My dad died by suicide back in 2015. Oh my
God.
Yeah, that was,
sorry to hear that. Yeah, that's terrible.
It was an extremely emotional tragedy in my life. And there's, you know, it's embroidered with all of the darkness and difficulty that you would expect around an event like that. And I don't know any other way to put it, but that art saved my life on that stuff, man. Like it was that event was like the first real cue in my life that was like, we might need to make some really personal art. Like, let's get into this and make stuff that's like about us or about our lives. I had really never had that impulse before.
Oh,
then.
wow.
Yeah. I'll be honest. Like before that, as you've heard me say, I was an industry guy. And like, I based a lot of what I wanted to do with art, like we were saying, off my skills, who would validate my skills, how I would be rewarded for those things. And when I made my own pieces, I mean, I was doing design stuff, concept stuff. It was just about the cool, right? Which is it is good enough on its own, right? That never left, right? So it was just about the cool. And I was doing, you know, what I think of as like genre stuff. Like, well, I don't know what to do. I'm a fantasy artist, so I'm going to do fantasy work. Maybe I'll dabble in sci-fi. Like it was less about the what than the how. I mean, it was less about the what than the how.
It was personal expression.
Yes, it was just like, this is what I want to do. I like this stuff. I'm going to try to make it as good as I can. Right. Like, and that was my focus. That was my focus.
Yeah. It wasn't about personal expression as much as it was about doing the cool thing.
Yes. Yeah. The fun thing. And it wasn't because I thought that was like hokey or anything. It was because I didn't want to. I didn't want to. I didn't feel it. Never landed. I was never like, oh yeah, I have something deep inside I want to like get out there or anything like that. Then my dad died, and it asked a lot more of me. You know, it opened up, you know, the way that does for most people. It changed everything about my life. And I said, all right, let's see what art can do. Because I've been an artist all these years. I've heard so much about expressing yourself and making personal art. Let's give it a shot. At that point, I was down and out. Like, I was like, well, I'm trying everything else, right? Like, so
you were specifically doing it as a way to help deal with that, to try and process it, or
I think
that's amazing.
So. I mean, with anything traumatic like that, I think it's a lot of it's gray. You know, it's hard to remember.
Right, yeah.
A lot of the stuff in that time was a lot of brooding. You know, maybe at that time I acted more like what people would expect from my art. It was a lot of being alone and not wanting to talk and stuff like that. But yeah, it started coming up, and I was like, we got to get this out. Like, I'm having all of these, it was almost inevitable, because art was the main thing that I thought about up until that point, always. Like if I'm stressed, I want to think about art. If I'm relaxed, I want to think about art, right? Like that's just what my life has been. So for this other thing to come in and it's right next to it in my head all the time, it's like they were going to talk.
Right.
There's no way they were going to not interact. So that started happening. And I just started twisting it, turning it around. I was like, what if I do these kinds of pictures, this kind of project? Maybe I write this, illustrate this. Like I mean, my wife could probably keep a better catalog of it than I could, but I stopped, worked on dozens of different things, trying to figure out how I was going to encapsulate this thing. Right. And I mean, I have tons of sketches laying around, stuff like that, but I didn't make or finish any of those things except for Paradise Lost, which my Paradise Lost illustrations they're a direct offshoot of that. That was the one that won. I was like, this, it's not so direct, but it feels right. And it is linked with my feelings about what happened with my father and all of that. But all of the other things, even if I didn't make them, now when I look back, I'm like, just the act of thinking through the projects and thinking through the themes and what does this say about my grief, the feeling of loss, that was therapy, man. Like that, the act itself saved my life on that stuff. It really was super necessary to sublimate all of those things into these other emotions and to turn them into art and projects and ideas, even if you don't make it, like turning it into an idea, right? Like there's something deeply powerful about the feeling that you made meaning out of something.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And ideas always carry that. When you have a good idea, it feels meaningful. So it was like, like you said, it's like I was catching all of these dark little bubbles. And if I could turn that into a good idea for a drawing, suddenly it was like, bloop, now it's gold, right? Now it's trapped. It's like, now I can't quite hate it because it became a good idea for a piece of art. And I just did that over and over and over again. It just started filing off a lot of the hard edges, filing off a lot of the hard edges.
That's amazing. That's fascinating to me to hear, because you experienced that trauma as an adult or a young adult.
Yeah, I was 25.
Yeah. So what's interesting is it's like I experienced trauma. The first thing that made me think of that is like I went into therapy. I went into therapy in the 90s. Totally saved my life. It was crazy. It was amazing.
Therapy's great.
Yeah. But I remember telling my therapist early on when I was getting to know her, I was like, art saved my life. And I didn't even like click at that point. I didn't even know why I was all fucked up. Like we hadn't gone into it. It turns out after going through the whole process, it was like, oh, I was, the problem is that I had these traumatic experiences that I hadn't processed because I repressed them because they were so painful, which was just like total family chaos, my early childhood, everybody fighting and just, all kinds of shit. And so the funny thing is, though, it happened to me, probably I think around age 5 or so, right around there. And I just withdrew into myself. And that's when I really started drawing the monsters and stuff. And so it's like I did kind of the same thing that you did, but without the just intuitively, without knowing what I was, without consciously doing it. It was sort of like I just did it. And it was, and again, I have theories about that, about like why I was attracted to horror movies and things at such an early age. And as much as it feels like just part of me, I think also a part of that was from this trauma. And so it's just interesting to hear us both getting the same result, to where it's kind of saved us and helped us to cope with that situation. But you as an adult and me as a kid.
Super interesting.
Yeah. It's a trip because often it comes up. A lot of people that are into a lot of, I think, artists in general, a lot of people have had childhood trauma and stuff. But I do hear that a lot of with the interviews. It's like, you do it as a kid as a way of surviving. And then after therapy, ironically, I started doing more dark art, because it's like I was
Mhm.
in effects and not doing really a lot of fine art. But that was one of the things that came out of that once I sort of like dealt with all this grief basically that I'd never processed. That's when I started painting and doing all the monster shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I was always doing it for fun, and I was doing makeup effects and monsters. But again, it's like what you're saying though too. It's like it was all about the fun thing. It wasn't
Yeah.
about personal, deep self-expression. It was about like, learning how to make a mechanical monster mask. I want to do American Werewolf Chango head.
Yep.
It's this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But once I'd gone through therapy, it was like then I started doing that personal work. So what a trip.
It is a trip, man. Yeah. It was like, yeah. And I should say that like everything, all that work that art did for me in that time, it's like therapy also very good.
Absolutely.
I went into therapy later, right? I couldn't have done it without both,
Same.
I think that, yeah, art is extremely powerful. It's very, well, no one really knows what the heck it is,
I
right?
know.
That's the other thing. No one actually understands why this is happening
it's
and why
crazy.
people get it in them or anything like that. Like it's, we spend a lot of time talking about it as a job, and it's like, that's like the last fucking thing it is.
Right.
That's really the very, very final part of it.
Right.
And it's so much more
Yeah.
than that. The job part and like the doing it part, the discipline part or whatever, the professionalism is like, that's like the little
I know. That's just the part that's the part we have to do to make a living.
Yeah. But it's so much broader than that. So yeah, like I feel, well, first off, I feel super lucky that I went through that traumatic experience as an adult, right? Because
Right.
I already had like a sense of self,
right?
To like, it wasn't going to like completely shatter my whole world. It was super hard still, but I like knew what I was trying to like get back to and like trying to piece things back together and stuff like that. So I feel very, very fortunate in that regard. And it also gave me an opportunity to like watch it happen, which is weird. Like it was weird to be being metacognitive about, you are now going to begin the process of using art as therapy.
Wow. Yeah.
Like that who gets to do that? Like,
right.
super strange, because I do think it's more common it happens all intuitively. Right. And it was an intuitive process for me too, right? Because I was really, there's no one can help you with this shit, right? Like there's no tutorials on how to do this one. So it was totally out there and all intuitive, but I was like aware I was doing it.
Right.
Weird, really weird, really freaking weird. And it gave me a huge respect for the strangeness of what is going on in art, because I had experiences in that process where stuff that I was always already drawing, right? Like creatures, monsters, stuff like that. Cause I was like, it's cool, right? I was like, all right, well now I'm analyzing everything. It's like, well, what is a tentacle, right? Like before I was just like drawing a tentacle, and now my brain cracked open, ultra sensitive, right? Like the world is changed now. It's like, well, what is a tentacle? What does that mean to you? And it was just like, yeah, you're going off on like the full, you feel like one of those insane autodidacts who like writes one of those cult books, or it's like an angel's telling me what to write. Like that ain't it, but it's like, I get where you're coming from. Cause there was definitely moments in there where
it's like, it's the same. I think it's the same thing. It's just, you're not crazy.
Yeah, I really
think the difference.
So.
It's like, you've got a more healthy relationship with that power that is, that whatever it is, this energy, this creative spark or this creative impulse. It's like, you're a normal dude and you're not a crazy person. So, whereas someone who's maybe got I shouldn't say crazy, but someone with mental health issues might have some situation like that. And they say that God's telling them to go and mow down a mall full of people or something, or write some insane book that says the world's going to end in 2 years or whatever. But it's like
but it's I think they're coming from the same core.
And it's almost like how you process it is the difference.
I think
like
so.
how it filters through your brain is the difference, or how you deal with it.
It's like I was asking all these questions of my art, like like what's a tentacle, like why always a man when you started drawing, right?
Right.
Like every
Right.
little thing, like all the
Totally, man.
axiomatic suppositions. And in that state, every time I asked a question, it would be like my mind would offer like, all right, let's go. Now you can write about it for 3 hours with like no thought, like it was being
Right.
dictated, right?
Yeah.
And it was just, but it was just like, oh, I didn't know all this stuff was lurking under the surface for me. Like I thought that I was drawing a man as the first sketch every time because I just didn't find drawing cute girls interesting.
Right.
But it turns out I have much deeper associations with all of that. And now I've lost my father and I'm like trying to become my own father. I need to manifest my own paternal energy for myself. And it's like, it was just like, you know, you go down the Union track, you go nuts in a healthy way, I think.
Yeah.
Explaining a lot to yourself. And that was, like I said, it gave me a huge respect for the weird stuff that's going on there. I was doing drawings where like I would do the drawing and I'd be like, well, that's nothing. And I'd put it away. And then I'd come back in 2 weeks or something like that. And I knew when I did the drawing, I was like, you know, I'd write dates on them, take photos of them and stuff like that. And I'd look at the drawing, I'd be like, what is happening here that drawing is like a perfect encapsulation symbolically of the emotional episode that I had 4 days later.
Right.
How did it predict that? Or was it that my body was already cueing that? And because I was drawing automatically, the drawing was presaging that. And then the process ran later. Like I have no answers for that. But now, even though I spend so much time talking about, you know, jobs, commercial stuff, like the craft of drawing and things like that, whenever someone comes to me and they're like, I don't know, like my drawings are super weird and they scare me, I'm like, I know. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. I've been utterly freaked out by the stuff that has come out in drawing. And
that's the magic though, man. That's the magic of art. When art is pure for art, when it's pure art, that's when actual magic is real. You know, that's like, I mean, what you just described is it's, you know, you could analyze it psychologically or whatever, but to me, it's like, it's miraculous. It's amazing. How can that? It seems impossible. It's like,
there you go.
It's crazy. So weird. It's crazy. And it's so in a good way. It's like, it's such a powerful healing tool in that way. It is, you know?
And once you've had experiences like that, it's like, you're never going to quit. Like, I don't know. Right. What, like, I'm like, some of that stuff is the most interesting stuff that's ever happened to me. Like, I'm not like, and in some deep sense, every time I come back to the drawing board, it's like, I'm mining that, you know, like, I'm like, what's in there? Who knows? Right. Like, let's see what's going to happen. And it's like, that's super addictive. Like, you don't want to, I want to take as many chances to like go in there and look around. It's so I want to take as many of those chances as I can in my lifetime. You know, like there is some weird, fascinating, educational, strange stuff in there. And it turns out there's not that much stuff like that in life. You know, so much else in life really is like, it's rigid. It's like, we know the answer. We know how this works, right? Like no one wants to be like, oh, you know, you want to be a doctor, like medicine's a mystery. Like that's not how anyone wants to talk about it. Like how to make money, you know, how to understand the stock market. No one's like, it's chaos. Who knows what that? Like everyone's like, no, I know the answer. Like no one likes that stuff. Art's like the one little thing that's left, right? Like even religion, right? Like even like, if you talk to a Catholic, right, like a traditional Catholic, like someone who's like, what's the Pope saying this Wednesday, right? If you talk to them, there's no tone of mystery. It's, what are you talking about? We know exactly. You do this and this and this and this, and then you get to go to heaven and you're not going to go to hell. And that's all there is to it. Just follow the rules. It's easy. So that's mystifying to me. Like, so even religion is much like stocks in that regard, where everyone's like, actually, I know exactly what's going on here. The only thing that's left in culture is fucking art.
Right.
Art's the one little thing that's left where no one has any idea what's going on or how it works. You know, the one little part that's like under attack is that like there's a tone right now that it's like people know how to teach art, right? Like, here's the steps, here's how you shade,
Right.
here's how you render. You're really good. You've been doing this a long time. So I'm going to guess that you, with the amount of experience you have, you kind of see, I'm guessing that that's kind of bullshit. Like, it really doesn't work that way.
That's the thing. It's like, I tell students all the time, because I do teach, and it's like on my Patreon, and it's like, you know, what I can do is I can show you how to mix colors and render and deal with composition and work out the problems. But it's like you could spend your whole lifetime reading how to paint books, and until you go and paint, you're not going to know how to do it. You can know everything about painting, but you have to do it in order to actually know how to do it. And no one can teach you that. No one can give that to you. It's like, you have to do it. So it's like, you know, because there's this whole element of, you know, how much paint you put on the brush, how it feels, the tactile response. There's like, it's huge. It's so huge. And so it's like, all you can do is really teach these kind of fundamentals and give advice and stuff like that. But you can't truly teach art. You know, that's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, I as someone who teaches and stuff like that, I mean, who's more incentivized than me to lie to people and be like, no, it's a straight shot and I know it, right? It's like, no, I can't do that. I'm going to tell you straight up. Nope, no one knows, right? Like, and it's like, in a narrow avenue, right? Like, if, let's say you want to paint light realistically, right? Like, we can all agree on certain things, right? About how to render a sphere and things like that, right? But even in a bigger context, like, there's so many artists who have healthy practices who they would define their style by not doing that, right? So it's like, it's like only in the narrowest of avenues can you even get down to those brass tacks, you know? So, I mean, when I think of the art that I make in my practice, like, my personal view on the work that I make, it's like, for as many bullet points as I have as like, here's the rules I use, right? Like, I compress value changes in the light. Like, I feel committed to that. Like, I do that to make my art look like my art, right? But for as many of those bullet points as I have as many bullet points where it's like, here's the rules I break. So my style is equally weighted on following and violation. And what that tells me is that, like, it's all kind of up for grabs. No one actually really knows. So I love art for that. I love that it's the one thing left that is just like, it's real chaos, you know, it's real magic still. Like, nothing left like that anymore.
Yeah, it's true. It's like one of the last, it just feels like one of the last real things left. Everything's bullshit now. It's like, I love life. I love my life. I'm a very positive, upbeat person. I love people, you know, but you know, I look around and it's like, everything is bullshit. I feel like, you know, I guess society at large, or whatever you want to say, it's just all bullshit everywhere. It's just like superficial bullshit.
The incentives are messed up. That's what I think.
That's
superficiality is what's incentivized.
Right.
You know, like, we don't incentivize for deep stuff.
Right.
You know? Not really. There's only rare places that still incentivize that.
But art is the one thing that is real still, that can be real, because even art on certain levels has been taken over by that. There's a lot of bullshit art, especially I think at the really high levels, the blue chip levels. There's a lot of nonsense happening there.
Sure.
But
I was raised in the New York art scene. I know. I've been to my fair share of utterly mysterious gallery openings. Yeah,
man. And it's like, it's funny because I have, through my connections with the effects world, you know, a lot of not a lot, but there's a handful of fine artists, blue chip fine artists, that hire effects shops to do their work for them. You know, they have
that makes sense, actually.
Yeah, they have this.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that before, but that makes sense.
Yeah, they don't do that shit themselves. They come in with like a weird idea that's trippy, and then they just have the effects company do it. I actually worked for a year for Paul McCarthy, this artist Paul McCarthy, working on his stuff.
Sounds super familiar.
Yeah, he does like these transgressive films. He started in the 70s of like, life-size Pinocchio throwing mayonnaise and mustard all over a life-size pirate in this really weird, dark actually, but like still like, oh, it's disturbing and weird and freaky. And
I have seen this stuff before. Yeah,
I mean, I did. It was
scroll over here.
Yeah. It was, so I worked there for like a year for Kazu, because he hired Kazu to do these realistic bodies. One of them being him bent over naked, and I was lucky enough to because you have to clean up. You do a body cast. They pour clay in the mold, and then you have to clean all the bubbles up and the seam. And my claim to fame is I got to work on his butthole and ball sack. Mitch of all people, he was working there. He just sent me a picture of me holding Paul's junk like a skull.
Nice.
Nice. I'm just like, I have this terrible look on my face.
Super serious.
So like, funny.
This is like, what craftsman looks like.
Yeah, it was more like, I can't believe I'm doing this. But what was my point? High end. Oh, they hire effects shops, and I know a guy who worked on some big blue chip artist project, and he actually heard the artist, or either told him or heard him telling someone else, like, it's just a bunch of bullshit. There's no deep meaning. It's just
now we're talking.
Yeah, it's like, so he's admitting it, and it's like, of course they're if it most of the time it is bullshit. I'm sure that there's, and again, I always defend great creative work, even if it's weird conceptual art. There's been some amazing conceptual art.
That's what I tell people too. For as many bad openings I've been to, I've seen art from that realm. I'm like, that's one of my favorite things. They did great. Like, it's truly good. Yeah.
There's some amazing shit that's been done in that realm. So it shouldn't all get painted with a broad brush, but it's like, it's just from the horse's mouth. It's like, it's a bunch of bullshit. The guy just admitted it, Yeah.
Cause even doing drawings, it's like, you discover pretty quickly that if you just shut up, right? If you just show people drawings and you just shut up, they'll tell you what it means, right? Like you don't have to say a damn thing, right? They'll start running their mouth, and they'll start punching above their weight, like they write for the Atlantic. They'll tell you exactly what your drawing means, and like connected to all the culture and stuff like that. Like, you don't have to do anything. Right,
that's true. That brings up a good point, though, of another amazing magical aspect of art is when it comes to the interaction with the viewer, like the real lover of art, the appreciator, someone that like is a fan of your work. It works as a like a psychological mirror, and it is really cool to create something that resonates with someone else, and they see something in themselves in it, and it helps them in some way. Like it makes them feel better in some way, knowing that someone else feels that way. I mean, that's like the connection that makes it all the suffering worth it, really, is when you connect with someone on that level. Because it's like you're communicating with a non-verbal language. It's like a language of symbols. And it's like you're communicating with this deep part of yourself, and it's communicating with the deep part of themselves. So it's like you're having this secret conversation that you don't even fully understand yourself.
Oh, I love that you said that.
It's such a trip, and mysterious and cool. It's amazing.
Yeah, a little different from doing it with an art lover, an audience member. But I often, when I talk with students, the way I put it sometimes is, I'm not actually talking to you, right? Like, it's my art demon is talking to your art demon right now, and we are both missing some huge percentage of this conversation. And it's just, because if I sit there and try to think about art for a long time, a lot of the times I draw a blank, right? But if you just make me start saying things about it, or if I'm teaching a student and they're like, how do I do this? Something that I've never thought about it before, I can talk about it for 50 minutes with like perfect elocution, right? So where's that hiding? I don't know what that is. So it really is just like some other thing back here. At least that's how I experience it. And it talks, right, using this mouth. And then the student is like, kinda, okay. But then they go off and then they nail it the next time they try it. And it's like, it was just talking past them and talking to their art process, whatever
Right,
that is,
right.
right? And that conversation, I don't know, that's happening on a different level a lot of the times, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the process of creating art as well. It's the same thing. It's like you're bypassing your uh
Hmm.
like you know something technically well enough to do it to where you don't really have to think about it, and so you can just let your it's almost like you bypass your conscious mind and you can let your unconscious mind do its thing. I mean, that's how
Yeah.
I when I'm painting, that's how I feel like I always set it up a way that feels natural to me is like the painting is telling me what it wants,
Yeah.
and I'm just trying to facilitate it and stay out of the way because I'm going to just fuck it up. Because it's
Yep.
like, anytime I've ever tried to make art that was too much of a intellectual exercise, like trying too hard to intellectually be what I think would be the best way
Right.
to express this, it just doesn't come out that good. But when I let this uh unconscious part of myself do its thing, that's when I make stuff that's great.
It does it great. Yeah.
It's
It,
better than me. It does it better
yeah,
than I can.
that's really what it's all about. And I
Mhm.
think that that's like, I think there's like a mystical secret in art. Like
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
that if you do it long enough, it starts whispering to you over the years, like there's something you need to accept about how this whole process works, right? And you can ignore it early on in the beginning years, but yeah, I think once you're crossing over into a lot of years, like 10 years plus and stuff like that, almost everybody that I know, right? They don't, if you get behind closed doors with them and you shake them and you're like, is this whole thing really fucked up? Like almost everybody is like, yeah, this is weird. And
Yeah.
I think it's that there's a mystical secret that like the you that you identify with, right? The thoughts, the words in your head that we just humdrum tend to think of ourselves as that.
Right.
It's like that's the part that has the least say in art being made, right?
Right.
Like it stumbles over itself, it gets in the way. Every moment that it needs to think about something technical is a
Right.
moment where it's failing, right?
Right.
And and art is made with all of you, strangely. And the weird thing is that, and yeah, like I said, this is what art's trying to tell you. It's like you don't feel like all of you, right? Like you don't,
Right.
your subconscious is opaque to you, right? The way your body works is opaque to you. And making art is surprisingly physical, right? You're like,
Right.
when I'm making art, I'm like, I'm bouncing my leg all the time.
Hmm.
I'm
And like you
reacting
said,
to
it's
the drawing.
exhausting, physically exhausting too.
Yes.
Especially when
Yeah.
you're like really into something. It's like, I shouldn't be this physically tired.
I've just been
I
sitting
didn't,
here.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it is. It is.
Yep.
I think it's because it's secretly
It's
surprisingly physical, and it's like your whole body's doing it, and you don't know how that works.
right.
You don't know how to beat your heart. You don't know
Right. Right.
you just automatically bounce your legs, and like when you're doing a portrait of that has an expression, you make the face right
Mhm.
automatically. It's like who know
Yeah.
who knows
Yeah.
what's running that.
I
So
know. Right.
it's like you make art with all of you, and the thinking you is like he's got the least input, right? Like he's the
Right.
least useful in the process. And eventually I think all artists, you have to realize like, okay, yeah, no, that it there who knows what's behind the veil, right? Like it
Right.
might just all be within the flesh bag, right? But
Right.
even that's too vast for us to understand.
Right.
There might be other things, who knows? But I don't think anyone can claim to know what the whole answer is, but I think everyone has to admit at a certain point, it ain't the you that's talking up here.
Right.
That
Right.
that is the one who's running this process. He
Yeah.
seems to do nothing but get in the way and
Right.
mess things up.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
No, no. This is so cool that you're bringing this up because it's like this is how art is like a spiritual practice.
yeah.
Because if you look at real spirituality and not mainstream religion or whatever,
Mhm.
what's the not mainstream, what's the term,
Yeah.
organized religion.
Yeah.
It's like but like personal real spirituality um is all about um basically overcoming the ego.
Yeah.
Enlightenment is about overcoming the ego and
Yep.
seeing ego being this false structure that's been set. It's just natural, it happens, It's kind of like this false sense. It's not really you are God, basically. You are like this eternal spirit deep inside. This is the theory. And so the goal is to try and get beyond your false sense of ego and be in touch with that part of yourself that is eternal and spiritual and amazing and everything. And so art is in the way that you're speaking is a way of doing that, because that's what you have to do. If you want your art to be great, you got to stop imposing your will onto it.
I think so.
It's like you got to get out of the way, and that is a spiritual act. That's the act of like humbling yourself to God in a way. The artwork is almost like you're treating the artwork with such reverence and respect that you're gonna like humble yourself to it and know that I can't do better than you can do. So I'm letting, if that makes sense.
No, dude, I'm right there. Yeah, I've been with you for years, brother. Like I've been 100% on this for a long time. I mean, that particular insight was why I started my YouTube channel. My good friend Ahmed Al-Duri, he was my roommate back in college for a while. He's pretty big on YouTube. He was one of the early artists to get on YouTube. And he was telling me for years, like, Steven, you got to make a YouTube channel. Like, you got to do it. And I was just like, I don't want to. Like, I don't know I don't want to show how to paint spheres and stuff like that. Like, right. I just don't know. It's not interesting. Right.
Right.
And what changed that for me was that insight, which I went on a personal journey on, linked with like what happened with my father and everything like that. And when I realized and arrived at that conclusion, like, oh, right, yeah, drawing is just another path to that, right?
Right.
Like, which makes sense because it's just meditating, right?
Yeah,
like you're not,
absolutely.
It's the same thing, and people have experienced that through meditation over and over again.
Yep.
So I was like, oh yeah, drawing has a mystical secret in it, and almost everybody you'll either accept it when you hit it in your art practice and woohoo, or you'll refuse and you'll be on a bad trip for a long time. That's what's going to happen.
And your art's going to suffer for it too.
Yeah.
You'll never make great work. And if you're doing that, I think.
I don't think so. I don't know anyone smart enough that they can consciously like grab their way to sublime, interesting work. Right. It just makes it miserable. It just makes it. Yeah. So when I realized that, I was like, now I want to make a YouTube channel. That's what I want to make a YouTube channel about. And, it's become other things in the intervening time, and I've added stuff to it, but the core of the channel and the core of the audience was, like the first 60 to 70 videos on my YouTube channel are exclusively just like point by point building up to that thesis, essentially. Just like, I start from the assumption that you think you control this, right? And then I slowly just episode by 10-minute episode, I'm like, let's find your control. Let us locate it. Let's find what you're doing so well. And I just slowly try to unravel it. And then I hope that I don't break anyone's mind while I do that. Instead, there's joy on the other side of it. Cause I think that's my favorite part about art. That it's just like, the longer you do it, it's just, there's a big crow hanging out there with these looming wings, and it's gonna look everyone in the eyes and be like, you're not doing this.
Yeah.
Like, it's not really you, right? Like, or at least not the you identify with.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a different you, it's a different you.
It's the real you. That's the way I see it. It's like the true you.
That's gotta be true, because everyone experiences, or most artists experience their art as like having an outsized personal impact, right? Like if something goes wrong, it really fucking hurts. And if something goes great, it's like, wow, like this made my month, It's like we react to the art practice in a way we don't react to other stuff in life generally. So it's like, it's gotta be more personal than the other stuff, because it's offering these different emotional valences and these stronger energetic impulses. Yeah, I think that really does betray that it is kind of, it is more you. It is more you. But again, it's weird. It's like, like Zen and stuff like that. They're always saying like, it is more you, but it's a paradoxical more you. Cause it's like, you can't quite get at it. It's more like you're relinquishing. You're like,
right.
I'm bigger than I get to know, and I just have to live with that.
Yeah.
You know, and you
Exactly.
you find a way to make peace with it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, art is kind of doing that in a way. It's a way of getting in touch with that part of yourself that you normally don't have access to as well. You know, like the whole Taoist thing is the Tao that can be talked about is not the real Tao. So it's like all of Taoism is about talking about what it's not, because because as soon as you name it, it's not it, because it's so much bigger than anything that you can say. That's why there's all that one hand clapping and shit and the Zen koans and all that. It's like you can't say it, so you have to like say all these weird things that make your mind go what, in order to just even talk around it to get a sense of what it is.
Yeah,
you know,
I loved all that stuff when I was pretty young. Like
same here. Alan Watts and all that, you know. And my stepdad, who was a big meditator, and he kind of came in and sort of like was a big life-changing, really positive life-changing force for our family after all that chaos in the early years. And he was like Zen meditating dude, every day meditated, had all kinds of Alan Watts books and Krishnamurti books and stuff. So, and so he got me into that, or I was just, you know, into that stuff early.
Alan's the best. He really gave the whole game away, didn't he?
Yeah.
He's just like, if you listen long enough, it's like, it's all there.
It's like that's all you really.
He put it super clear.
It's so easy to understand too.
All right, I'm done here. And then
yeah.
Everything else is just kind of not as cumulative and like complete.
Yeah, I had that experience with Krishnamurti too, because my stepdad was really into Krishnamurti as well. And I was always like, Alan Watts is like, he's so much more clear. It's like it's like I understand what he means, whereas Krishnamurti's like, whoa, that's, you know, I'm not getting that. It's like I think it was because Krishnamurti was, I don't know if you know much about him, but he's kind of a mystic. He was like a mystic dude.
I've listened to a few talks.
Yeah, I think
don't really remember them super well.
He was really enlightened, and I think Alan Watts was, you know, not a mystic. He was more like he knew the shit, and he was more of like he knew how to teach it well.
Yeah, he was just like the best communicator ever.
Yeah. Because he was like a partier, and he died young. He was like an alcoholic and everything, Alan Watts. And but he was like, he could talk about Zen and Eastern philosophy like nobody else.
Yeah, he had it down pat.
Yeah,
he
amazing.
Really gave it all away. Yeah,
amazing.
I owe that part of my interest to my sister. Again, crap. She gave me both the drawing and the
cool, amazing,
the introduction to that more spiritual stuff, because she's 15 years older than me, so she was like a generation ahead, and she was really into that stuff. You know, that's so cool. She loved Ram Dass, Alan, probably Krishnamurti, but she had
amazing.
She had their books laying around and stuff like that, and she was always talking about those kinds of things. So she never handed it to me. She was never like, dude, get into
same
this.
with my stepdad. Exactly. It was just there.
Ambiently, you know. So and I you know, I was like, well, she's into it, so this is a thing, you know, is viable. But it was so weird to me that for as exposed as I was to that early on, and like I got into meditation pretty young and things like that. The weirdest thing is I never thought it belonged in the art. It's like,
wow.
It was like there was a door, like there was like it was, I don't know how to explain it. It's like there was something inside that maybe was like, this is for later or something. And it just like, it made me always assume like those are just separate parts of your life, right? There was like surface level stuff. Like, I remember like some of the Zen stuff, right? Like doing things with no effort, like all that. Like, I remember trying to bring some of that into the art, and well, we all know at a certain, that pays dividends pretty quickly, just relaxing and like, but even when I was doing that, which seems like it's really skirting it, right? Like you're really close to hitting it. It was like, I was still just thinking of it as like, no, that's just like a mechanical thing. It's a good craft thing, right? Like it's just, you don't put so much muscle pressure on it.
Right.
And I was just like, I had this door that was like, don't see the secret. Don't like quite get it yet. And then I was it was the funniest thing in the world when, like, in my mid-20s, it like all the door came down and it sort of revealed that I was interested in the same thing from 2 or 3 different angles, and it had all been the same thing.
Right.
The whole time I was like, what is life? What is going on right now? And it was just I remember just laughing and laughing and laughing. It was the most like hysterical freedom, you know? Like, wow, this is really the best. Like, this is highly recommendable, you know? Like, I wish this for everyone, including my worst enemies. This is the best.
Yeah. I remember. That's funny. I remember my dad. You know, you just talk about laughing at kind of the absurdity that you didn't see it too.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, and that's, you know, I've had that experience so many times on tripping on mushrooms, where it's like you just realize, like, oh my God, this is so absurd. It's hilarious. But I remember my dad telling me he used to go when he was younger. He would meditate in a Buddhist monastery called the Zen Center in San Francisco, and he lived up there. And he said one time he had this spontaneous, whatever it is, enlightenment, I don't know what you call it, but he said he just couldn't stop laughing, and he's like, all these serious Zen people, and he was like just busting up, and he couldn't control himself, and like everyone's all pissed off at him. He was just cracking up.
If you believe like the tone of like the koans, right? Like I read like the Mumonkan and stuff like that, the Gateless Gate, the collection of koans back when I was like probably like 17, something like that. Because
that's cool.
I found I just found the lore fascinating. Like I loved the language. I love that it wasn't like they weren't stories. Like it was just so, you know, very much like I think a lot of Westerners have this experience when you encounter like totally different formats of storytelling and communication. I became fascinated with them just because they were so different, right? But if you believe the classic tone of those koans, those serious people who were giving your dad the stink eye, in their internality, they're like, I get what's happening.
Right.
Like they're right there with it. Like they totally know what he went through, but they're just like, they're putting on the Zen master for the market kind of a
they
face,
know it,
you know?
Yeah, they kind of know it's all a bunch of bullshit ultimately, though. You know.
Yeah. I like to think that that's probably the case, but
you're right.
I think I think it's difficult to say like, oh yeah, when you're that far out talking about stuff like that, I think it's difficult to say like, oh yeah, I've had an experience like that or something like that. Like we're playing with some pretty big meatballs there. But I think when I hear that, like I think I've had similar experiences, and certainly laughter was a defining quality, because just there's no if comedy is an unexpected punchline, it's like that sure feels like it. Like all of your worries were like the smallest possible thing. Through all of the pain, everything's been thumbs up and super good. That's pretty funny. That's pretty damn funny. No, it's good stuff.
Amazing.
Like I said, I'd wish it on my worst enemies, for sure. It's a beautiful feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah,
it's highly educational.
I have to bring this up. I'm gonna let you go because this podcast is so good. It's going on forever. What a great way to start the new year for the podcast. For me, anyway, think so. It's like, what a great, amazing episode. Like this episode
is a blast, man.
Everything that I hope an episode can be, where we really get into the deep shit.
Well, I knew coming in, I was like, oh yeah, everything's on the table. Like that's
perfect.
That's what you get for being the person you are and for the brand that you have out there. It's like, you've really made there's other situations where I'd be like, there's some punches I'd have to pull, but it's not here. It could just be completely outright here. Yeah.
But I want to mention this before we say goodbye, is that another weird thing about your last name, Zapata. My last name I was born with, Zar, is my stepdad's name, and he adopted me when I was like 12, like legally. But the name I was born with was Zapata.
Really?
Which is Mexican, and Zapata. And then I thought it was so weird that Zapata and Zapata are so similar, but it's almost like Zapata with a Z on the front. Not that I'm saying there's some great meaning there. I just think it's one of those cool synchronicities that it's like, oh, that's weird. I never thought about that.
That does strike me as a good synchronicity. I like it.
If nothing else, it's a fortuitous little
I think so.
Sign from the gods. Or
I certainly like it.
it.
Makes me happy. So
Yeah.
I'll keep calling you Chet Zar to everyone. Don't worry.
Oh, that's that's it's too. I got, people think it's not a real name because it's so unusual. So it's like I like that name. I like that name because it's a weird name. It just kind of, but it is real. It's just my stepdad's name.
You only need to hear it once to remember it. You've got a very good name for that. Yeah. My name's all right. I've always thought Steven was a little regular, but thanks, Mom. And
Zapata's great.
That stands out. It is actually a pretty common name in Mexico and South America because it comes from Emiliano Zapata, who was a famous revolutionary in the Mexican Revolution. So it is like, I know several other artists whose last name are Zapata. There's like James Zapata, the did you know Garbage Pail Kids?
Oh my God.
The art director, the guy who did all the Garbage Pail Kids, his name is Jeff Zapata.
Okay. Another cosmic synchronicity. I am doing 2 commissions of Garbage Pail Kids right
really
now that I just finally started after like a year.
That's awesome.
Yesterday I started them yesterday or the day before, and then I'm like right in the middle of it. So it's like, what are the chances? Funny. This is the magic. Funny. This is the magic.
This is the good magic right here. It's New Year's magic. I think this bodes well for the rest of the year.
Definitely.
I think so.
Definitely. Yeah. Wow. What a great, amazing interview. Well, I'm gonna, let's wrap. I could keep going for hours with you, but let's just do it again sometime in the future.
Yeah, sounds good to me. This has been a blast.
Come on. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. If you want to give out any of your socials, I'll put that in the body of the podcast. But if you want to like shout out your YouTube channel or anything like that, go for it.
Oh yeah,
or your Instagram and all that website.
Yeah, if you want to find me on YouTube, just go on YouTube and type in my name, Steven, Steven Zapata, Zapata. I'll pop right up. If you do the / thing, it's Steven Zapata Art. That'll take you right to my page. Same on Instagram. I'm just at Steven Zapata _art. You want to go to my website? That's just stevenzapata.com. And I think I'm pretty reachable, pretty easy to find.
Yeah. And his stuff's amazing. I know everybody in the dark art side is going to love it if they don't know your work. And I bet most of them do. But
thank you, sir.
If you haven't seen his stuff, you guys are going to dig it. I know it's right up our alley. Thanks again for coming on. And
my pleasure.
Really had that was a great way to start the new year. I'm so happy that we did this. And
I loved it, man.
Yeah. So cool. So what we do is customary is we say goodbye to the audience. So we have to say goodbye, audience. So
goodbye, audience. Should I do it again?
No, that's great. Perfect.
Goodbye, audience.